My entitled coworker literally got fired for stealing my earbuds off of my desk, as he literally tried to replace them with some cheap dollar store knockoff, while also trying to gaslight me into believing that the ones he stole were actually his. And I'm honestly so glad this guy got fired because he was incredibly sketchy. Here's what happened. Okay, so this all happened back in 2016. I have a coworker who didn't strike me as a bad guy, but something was just weird with him. He would be cagey about the most innocent topics, as though he wanted to appear mysterious and involved with things that you just don't need to worry about. He really wanted to be perceived as connected and lucrative. And I could go on and on about the weird stuff this guy did, coming to work high on painkillers and openly talking about it after he faked an arm injury and had no prescription, all the way to leasing expensive cars to give off the impression of wealth. Like, this guy thought he was completely untouchable. He would throw parties and invite everyone, and one time I went and it was at a mansion. The entire time he was just posturing and implying that this was his house. But I was chatting with a staff member and she told me he was just house sitting for a family friend or something like that. I mean, this guy was completely full of crap. Now, enough with the context. This is where the story really kicks into gear. I keep a pair of earbuds on my desk at work. They aren't expensive or anything like that, so they would just sit there when I left for the day, because we work in a normal office and nobody steals stupid crap like that. Well, or so I thought. One day I'm sitting there and I realize that something is different about my headphones. It takes me a few seconds, but I realize that the silicone earpieces are black, but before they were opaque white. And I think to myself, wait a second, what's going on? Upon further inspection, my earbuds had been swapped with some dollar store generic ones, like the sort you would get when you fly Economy Plus and they pass them out with the small pretzel packages. My immediate thought was that one of my coworkers is playing a prank, so I go around and I ask everyone what's going on. Now, as you can probably guess, I did a lot of foreshadowing already, so I'm going to just jump ahead. I walk up and this guy had them in plain view on his desk. When I confronted him about it, he swore up and down that they were his and I must be confused. I ended up just grabbing them and throwing the fake ones on his desk and walking away because it was 100% obvious these were mine. Meanwhile, I had already asked half the floor if they were just messing with me earlier that morning. Like, even the manager knew I was looking for those stupid earbuds, presumably on the receiving end of a prank. He then came by and asked me if I ever found them, and I told him exactly what happened. Well, a few hours later, this guy got fired. Apparently, there were a lot of other things that he had done, and they just needed a valid reason to make it happen. In fact, he was here on a work visa and had to move back to his home country, because this guy is the epitome of playing stupid games, since today he finally cashed in and won his stupid prize. Oh man, imagine being so sketchy that you literally would steal from a coworker, resulting in you literally getting sent back to your home country. Like, if I was in a work visa overseas, I would be on my best behavior. I would literally do everything I can to not get in any trouble because I 100% want to keep my job and not ruin it for myself. And this guy absolutely blew it in my opinion. All he had to do was behave himself and not act like a moron, and he probably would have been just fine. But if his shady behavior wasn't enough, him stealing from the original poster is like the nail in the coffin. So I think overall you did a good thing by catching this guy, because these people needed a reason to get rid of him, and you gave him the perfect one right then and there. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My entitled coworker tries to get me in trouble at work, all because I didn't invite her to my wedding. Here's what happened. Okay, so this is honestly one of the weirdest work things I've ever dealt with. There's a woman in my office I'm friendly with, but I'm really not close to. We've had small talk here and there, but it's never been anything deep. We've never had lunches together and had no real outside of work connection. She found out I was getting married and asked when the wedding was, and then she straight up asked if she was invited. I kind of laughed and I said, oh no, it's just really small, just close friends and family. And honestly, I didn't think anything of it. She then got quiet and a little cold after that, but I figured, okay, maybe it's just an awkward moment, but whatever. Well, fast forward a few days later and I get a meeting invite from Human Resources. It turns out she filed a complaint saying that I was being exclusive and creating a hostile environment by leaving people out. And this is all because I didn't invite her to my wedding that I'm paying for that isn't even work related. So I had to sit in this meeting and explain that I'm not required to invite coworkers I barely know to my literal wedding. I explained that it's a personal event and that it has nothing to do with work or who's in the office. Human Resources honestly looked just as confused as I was. They basically said, yeah, okay, thanks, and then they closed the case. But now she acts super passive-aggressive towards me, like side eyes, little digs when I walk by, still bringing up these weird sarcastic comments, saying stuff like, well, some people are so inclusive these days. And I can't believe she actually thought Human Resources could make me invite her. Some people really do think they're the main character, and this lady absolutely fits the bill. will. Okay, you've got to be a special kind of stupid to complain about this. Like, seriously, dude, what are you thinking? Did she really think that human resources was going to do anything to change this? Like, dude, what an idiot. Because the original poster has it right. They're not obligated to invite you to the wedding. So yeah, this really was a weird situation, and honestly, it's incredibly funny because this coworker's entitlement was completely out of line. My entitled daughter demands that I hand over my retirement money, as she says I need to buy her a house instead of using it for myself when I retire. But after I said no, I'm not going to do that, she called me selfish and has started telling other relatives that I'm hoarding money. And at this point, I'm honestly so heartbroken that I seriously just don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. I'm a 55-year-old female and I've been a single mom for most of my life. I worked multiple jobs, I sacrificed vacations, and I skipped luxuries just to give my daughter, who's now 26, a somewhat decent life. She had everything she needed growing up: private school, a used car at 18, even partial support through college. I never asked for much in return, just for her to be responsible and independent. Well, lately she's been pressuring me about my retirement savings. She found out I've been aggressively saving for the past 10 years so that I can retire early and travel, and maybe finally enjoy my life just a little bit. Well, her response was to say, "You should use that money to help me get a house." I told her kindly but firmly that I've already done my job as a parent. I'm not rich, I just planned well, and honestly, I deserve some peace. But she snapped at me. She said to me, "So you're just gonna be selfish now, after everything I went through growing up?" But I told her I'm the one who went through a nightmare to try and raise her with some kind of stability, and now she's been giving me the cold shoulder and telling other relatives that I'm hoarding money, while she struggles just to make rent. So right now I feel very jaded and honestly very hurt by this, and I just don't know what to do. Okay, honestly, your daughter is incredibly spoiled, and she completely missed the point that, yeah, you sacrifice a lot for her. And just because you've saved a lot of money doesn't mean that she's somehow entitled to it. Like, seriously, look at what she's saying right now. She's saying, I think it's time you buy me a house. Oh, you're not gonna do that? Well, guess what? Now you're selfish. I went through so much growing up. And it's like, what do you mean? You had a stable home with a mom who cared about you, and she helped you through college to a certain extent. Like, you literally have every advantage in life, and now here you are at 26, trying to act like you deserve this retirement money. Like, dude, what are you talking about? So I know if I was in your shoes, I would not fall for that crap for a second. If she wants to say that you're hoarding money, then congratulations, that's exactly what you're doing. Because this is all manipulative so that she can get this money out of you to buy a house or do literally anything else with it. And I really think that would be a disservice to you, since you've saved so much money and done so much to try and secure your future, which, by the way, you absolutely deserve to have some kind of peace. Today, I was terminated without any warning, so I decided to get some petty revenge by reporting my former employer for tax evasion. Here's how it's all going down. Okay, so I was working a 1099 position that was bringing in around an extra $3,000 a month. I was able to do this job alongside my full-time job with no issues. I turned in my work on time, I attended all my meetings, and I had even gotten a great report from one of my clients. My job must have suspected I was doing more than one position, however, and they started demanding that I check my email at least once every hour, and even set hours for me as an independent contractor. I had to report when I was out of the office, whether for injury or something else. Well, I pointed out that I was an independent contractor, and that none of those things were a contractual obligation. In fact, the entire reason I took the extra work with this company was the flexibility, but they just ignored this and continued to push. Well, a few weeks ago at nearly midnight, I received a termination email. No phone call, not even a text message. I went to log into my computer the next day, and I saw my credentials were invalid. I reached out to my supervisor and I was told to check my personal email, with them adding a snide remark of, well, if you even do that, and then that was the end of it. Well, I stewed on this for a few days before I finally did something. I reported them for mislabeling my position as an independent contractor when in fact I should have been a W-2 employee. The IRS has a ton of information on what constitutes an independent contractor and what doesn't, and I met none of the criteria for an independent contractor. They were doing this to avoid paying taxes on their employees and to avoid having to offer insurance. So you know what? I reported them. I would wager that this is still ongoing for them, as it's only been a few weeks. I'm not excited about potentially putting people out of work, but I am simply tired of being screwed over by my employers. Okay, I love this because the original poster is standing up for themselves. And my God, this is absolutely the way you want to do it. He's standing on business, man. He is not letting this slide for a second, because this employer absolutely was crossing a line here that is just completely unacceptable. So I think that what you did is completely justified, and hopefully karma comes to bite them in the butt for the way they treated you. Am I the jerk for taking a walk during my lunch break, despite the fact that some of my coworkers and my parents are saying that I shouldn't be allowed to do that? Here's what's going on. A few years ago, I started working at a job that was more office-based than previous jobs. Because of that, I was moving less and gaining some weight, and I am very out of shape as it is. I'm not overweight, but I'm carrying a little more fat than I'm used to, and I can tell my cardio ability has gone down. Now, I get a 1-hour paid lunch per day. A lot of my coworkers eat at their desk and do very little work, like maybe answering an email if that, but mostly they're just eating. I personally go to my car to eat and then do laps around the parking garage before I go back in. I'm never gone for more than an hour and I always come back on time. Well, recently I did my normal routine. I grabbed my lunch, I went to my car and I ate it, and then I started on my walk. I happened to run into a coworker during my walk, and he was out there because he forgot something and needed something from his car. He then stopped me and asked what I was doing, and I told him that I ate my lunch and now I'm taking a walk before my lunch break is over. Well, he didn't like that answer and said that our lunch break is for eating, not for walking, and that when I'm done eating, I should go back to work. But I told him we're given an hour for lunch, and I want to use all of it in the best way that I can. Now, I think he may have told other people about this because now I've been receiving comments before I go on break that I didn't receive before. I don't think I was wrong. I'm entitled to my break. All my work gets done on time. I take it at about the same time every day, so it's expected I won't be available, and I maybe come back for a few non-urgent emails. I have my phone on me in case someone calls me for an emergency, which honestly just never happened. I talked to my parents about it, and they both said that they work through lunch and that I shouldn't be out walking, but also they're older and they were raised in a different time, so I don't know if I should trust their judgment. So honestly, am I the jerk for taking a walk during my lunch break? Because right now I'm honestly not sure what to do. Okay, in my opinion, the second you clock out for your lunch break, you can literally do whatever you want. Maybe you want to go to the bank or go to the grocery store to pick up some groceries or something like that, or even take a walk around the parking garage. What you do with your time is literally your business. So the fact that your coworker is trying to talk about you behind your back and is seriously trying to be like, wow, you should go back to work when you're done eating. That's stupid in my opinion and not something I would ever pay attention to, because his opinion literally doesn't matter. An entitled Karen parks in my driveway every single day, claiming that she knows this is my spot, and yet still she's gonna keep using it, which honestly is blowing my mind because I've never met someone this entitled in my life. Here's what's going on. Okay, so one morning I looked out my window to suddenly see a random woman parking in my driveway. For context, my parking spot fits 2 cars, but my partner usually parks there, or my parents do when they come over. The first day this happened, I thought I would give her the benefit of the doubt, as I wasn't sure if she was just mistaken. She looked up from scrolling on her phone and gave me a filthy look as if to say, "Why are you staring at me?" and then made a gesture with her hand to say that she's leaving. She then sat further for 5 more minutes on her phone and then she left. Well, the next morning I see the car parked there again and she's nowhere to be seen. I then decided to leave a note on her windscreen asking her to please not park there ever again. Well, after a few hours of checking out the window to see if she had come back or not, she eventually arrives with a grin on her face. I asked if she works around the area and told her that it's my driveway and that she cannot park there. Well, to my surprise, she says to me, "I know it is, but I'm just using it." And I said, "You can't park there. I need it. It's my space." She then said to me, "Well, I work around the corner and there's no parking, so I go here." I then pointed to the various spots I could see, and she said she won't park there again. She then ripped up my note, threw it in the drain, and then proceeded to sit in the drop curb, giving me filthy looks before finally driving off. I'm not sure if she's gonna come back, but I assume that she probably will try to do so. So as a result, I've started parking diagonally to stop her from accessing my spot, because this seriously is some crazy behavior. Okay, dude, if someone did this to me, I would give them one chance to be a nice person about it and just move their car, and then that would be the end of it. Because trust me, if someone tried that again, I would happily tow that car. So yeah, you can park your car diagonally, or you can catch her on camera parking there again, and then call up a tow truck to get rid of her car. Because her attitude and the way she talked to you is just completely unacceptable, especially because she knows exactly what she's doing. Am I the jerk for not allowing any Airbnb guests to use my patio, since they are literally invading my private space? Here's what's going on. So I bought a flat as an immigrant a few years ago that was all around from the ground up in a country with a bad reputation. Even the street and the city it was in was bad as well. I won't say that it was just luck, but the country became an attractive country to visit. The city developed a lot, and my street, being in the center, became very attractive to visitors. Now, my street has been fully renovated, and so has the facade of my building, because thankfully we got public funds for that. And while the inside is still not that great looking, we're honestly just completely fine with that. My flat is the only one that opens to the courtyard, and after speaking to the neighbors, they were all enthusiastic for me to turn my corner of the courtyard into something pretty on whichever way I felt. Now, in this kind of building, it is defined how much each apartment owns of the land, but it's not delimited. So I own, let's say, about 5% of the land. Usually usually I would use it for the parking space, but it's not like you have delimited parking space, and since I don't drive, I asked my neighbors if I could take the corner next to my door as mine. This was a no parking space, and everyone enthusiastically agreed to let me make a mini garden and patio. After the city and the street blew up with tourism, someone did some legal trickery to buy the flats on top of mine that were supposedly to be safe for low-income people and turn them into an Airbnb. Now, we were not happy about it for many reasons, starting with the fact that those flats were supposed to be for actual low-income people. But this is where the actual conflict comes into play. I let my neighbors use my patio, but I've been kicking Airbnb guests out of it. Apparently, the Airbnb host posts pictures of my little corner of the courtyard as some kind of public space. But I don't think it's a public space since I own part of the land, and the Airbnb owner definitely does not, and has been accepted that this is my portion of the land. Now, the Airbnb owner is saying that he will sue me for discrimination since I share my little patio with the other neighbors, but I don't allow tourists in it, and he's had some negative reviews. Now, I need to emphasize, I'm absolutely safe legally, but when it comes to morally, I need to know, am I the jerk for not allowing tourists in my space, even though I let my neighbors use it no problem? What should I do? No, you're not the jerk at all. This is your private space. This is your private patio, and it's not a public space that anyone can go to. And in my opinion, this Airbnb owner is a complete jerk. He advertised that space as something that anyone could go to. But it's like, dude, you don't own that. Why would you be like, oh yeah, you could come along and go to this place. This is totally fine. Like, no, you can't. This is my private space that I built up. Don't pretend like this is a public space. Like, what's going on right now? So no, you're not the jerk for kicking them off. And honestly, if I was in your shoes, I would do the exact same thing. Am I the jerk for refusing to move out so that my roommate's boyfriend can move in? Because right now I feel very disrespected and I'm not sure if I'm making a mistake. Here's what's going on. Okay, so my roommate and I split our lease 50-50 and currently we're on a month-to-month basis as we have been living here for about a year and a half. Last week she sat me down and told me that her and her boyfriend want to take the next step and move in together. As she was telling me about it, she told me I need to leave and find a new place to live. Well, I'm refusing to leave as I believe that the person who wants to change is the person that should facilitate that, and that I should not have to uproot my life by finding a new place, as well as spending the money to move in order to make that happen for her. She says that she is entitled to stay because she made a garden in the backyard and does the majority of the yard work. Also, most of the furniture is hers. And these are things that I've taken into consideration, but ultimately, I decided that I wanted to stay. I also made it clear that I was okay with her staying and her boyfriend moving in since she already has the master bedroom, but they say they want to live without a roommate. So honestly, am I the jerk for refusing to move out? What should I do? Okay, I 100% agree with the original poster. If their roommate really wants to have a new place with their boyfriend, then guess what? They absolutely should be the ones to move out. You should not be expected to uproot your life just so they can have the place to themselves. Like, what's going on right now? Like, this is some crazy behavior and she's just trying to like guilt trip you out of that place. And that sucks. Like, that really is not something you deserve. Because at the end of the day, she is not more important than you. It's not her house to kick you out of, and you literally have the same rights to that space as she does. And if she really doesn't like that, then guess what? She can move out and find a place with her boyfriend, which in my opinion is the only logical solution in this situation. My entitled future mother-in-law demands free salon service all because I'm marrying her son. But I definitely gave her a rude awakening when I told her straight up that that was absolutely not gonna happen. Here's how it went down. I'm a 28-year-old female and I've been dating my boyfriend, who we will call Patrick, for about 2 years now. We both know each other's families, but we chose not to make our relationship public until we were ready to get married. Well, last month we finally made it official and informed his family that we are getting married. Well, while we were with his family, his mom asked me about my livelihood. I told her that I'm a hairstylist and that I own a salon about an hour from their house. Well, when I told her this, her response was to say, "Oh wow, at least now we don't have to pay to get our hair done again. We'll start with ours first so we can see how good you are before you officially become my daughter-in-law." Well, when she said this, I just kind of smiled and didn't say anything. Fast forward to 3 days later and she actually calls me. After the usual small talk, she says, "Please, where's your salon located again?" I gave her the address and she then goes, "Oh, that's too far. I can't come all the way there. I'll need you to come today to braid my hair." So I asked her what style she wanted and I told her the price for home service. Well, she responded by saying, "No, I'm not paying for it. After all, you're going to be my daughter-in-law soon." I then politely told her that I don't offer free home service, especially not for an hour-long trip, and then I just hung up the call. Okay, this is some crazy entitlement in my opinion because like seriously, seriously, did she really think that this was going to be some kind of like free service for life? First of all, this is some real true colors coming through, and it's a massive red flag when it comes to getting into this family. I think the original poster knows that, but like, holy crap. Imagine 3 days after finding out you're going to have a new daughter-in-law, you go to them and say, "Oh, I can't wait to take advantage of your business. Drive an hour to my house right now and braid my hair, please." No, I'm not going to pay. Why would I? Like, dude, what are you talking about? This is a horrible first impression. Like, seriously, you're doing a terrible job at being a reliable new in-law in this person's life. Like, this mother-in-law literally just proved that no, she doesn't care about your livelihood, she's gonna try and take advantage of you, and no, she's a tightwad who's not gonna pay you for your service. Which is like, okay, that's like 3 strikes and you're out in my opinion. There's no way I'm ever gonna do anything for you after that again. But I really do love the way you handle this because this is completely unacceptable. You didn't entertain her for a second, you said, "No, I'm not gonna do that," and then you hung up the phone. Because this lady seriously was so indignant that she was like, "Oh, I'm not paying for that." All under the assumption that just because you're daughter-in-law means that you get to circumvent this entire business and get free service. And that, in my opinion, is super toxic.
My Tinder date brought their dead mother to my house. Here's what happened. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell for notifications. Like many other unfortunate souls, my non-existing dating life has turned me to the dating apps. This particular one is from Tinder. I'd been chatting with this guy a few days and everything was going swimmingly. We had so much in common and were looking for the same things. His pictures were cute and he didn't live too far away. All seemed well. I invited him over to grill out some burgers in my backyard. He asked if he could bring anything. I said, sure, bring some bacon for the burgers. He agreed and said he'd be over soon. Given his distance, I expected him to be over in about 15 minutes. I started the grill and seasoned the burgers. Half an hour later, he messaged me. "I've driven by a couple times and chickened out. Are you sure you want me to come over?" Maybe a red flag, but I just chalked it up to nerves and just said, "Come on, I'm hungry." So this Hagrid looking guy shows up, much different than his Cedric picture. That's alright, I can move past that. From the minute he walked up, and I kid you not, he did not take a breath. Within the first 5 minutes, I knew his life story from his aunt who hated their grandma to his father who likes to collect taxidermy. Not a single breath. Again, I figured he was just nervous. I put the burgers on and when they're ready, he pulls a Ziploc from his pocket with 2 pieces of bacon in it. He puts them only on his burger. Okay. We sit down at the patio table to start eating. I finished my burger before he even started his. He did not stop talking the entire time. When we sit down, he reaches into his pocket and pulls out a vial. It's about 2 inches tall with a cork in it. It's filled with black powder. He must have noticed me staring at it, flipping between if he was about to snort something strange or build some sand art. Then, all super casual, he said, "Oh, I'd like to introduce you to my mother." I just stared at him for what felt like an eternity. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry or run. "I like to bring her to any important event in my life. She also has ashes in this necklace I'm wearing and in this ring I have on, and this half-sleeve tattoo is for her." Now, mind you, I've lost too many people close to me, and I don't judge people based on their grief cycles. We all cope differently, and I respect that. But homeboy brought a vial of his mother's ashes and set them on the table for our first date. I simply could not. He finally finished his burger, and I made some excuse about having to clock in and finish some work at 9:30 p.m. He texted me before he even got to his car and told me, "My mother really liked you. I can't wait to see you again." I told him I didn't feel the connection to him or his mother. Yeah, massive amount of red flags on this one, I feel. At the end of the day, you might be right. It might just be nerves. But there's definitely something a little bigger going on here, and this guy needs to kind of pull himself together a little bit. There are some benefits to using dating apps. You get to kind of know the person a little bit before having to be put in a situation of an awkward date. Unfortunately, it seems like our poster didn't catch the flags early enough on this one. My mom got to take the ultimate vacation and managed to screw over her boss at the same time. My mother passed away several years ago, and this is one of her best stories. She worked as the head of the transcription department of a government agency. Whenever she would ask for time off, her boss would refuse. This went on for years, and her leave just accrued. One day, when she was about to turn 63 years old, she walks into her boss's office and tells him she's giving him 2 years' notice that she'll be retiring. He's very confused as to why she's giving so much notice. Then she informed him that she'll be on vacation for the rest of her employment as she has 2 years of leave accrued, and walks out of the door. This one is just a boss move. This is a heck of a way to quit. Yeah, I'm leaving, and by the way, you're still going to be paying me for the next 2 years. I love this. My husband blames me for missing his business trip because he was too lazy to pack his bags himself. My husband travels for work every few months. He's irresponsible with time and counts on others to do stuff for him using the "I'm tired" excuse. He's the breadwinner, by the way. He had a business trip, and the day of the trip saw me carrying the laundry basket and said, "Hey, can you pack my bag?" I asked why he didn't do it the night before, and he said he was up all night playing Fortnite. I asked why he can't pack now, and he replied, "I gotta go catch up with the boys before I leave the country." I said no, and that he should do it himself. He asked why not, and I told him that I had to do the laundry, then cook for the kids, then help them with homework, then wash the rugs, then clean the messy bathroom, then the playing room, then work on my garden project. He stood there with his eyebrow lifted up as I went on. I suggested he stays home, pack his own bag, and help around till it was time for his trip. He didn't like my suggestion and complained about missing the boys and wanting to see them one last time and say goodbye before he leaves. He begged, but I said no. He then suddenly went inside the bedroom, I thought he was packing, grabbed his phone, keys and jacket, and rushed out. I just went about my day. It was 5 o'clock and he hadn't returned yet. I was concerned, thinking he had little time and still hadn't packed yet. He returned home at 6 o'clock, walked into the bedroom, and started panicking, asking why his bag wasn't packed and ready yet. I told him he should ask himself since he stayed gone for hours. He said he was counting on me to pack his bag, and even sent me a text hoping I'd eventually do it. I didn't see the text, and even if I did, I never agreed, so he shouldn't have assumed I was going to pack his bag for him. He got upset and started packing. His stuff was all over the place and he couldn't even find his papers. He was finally done and left. I then got an angry call from him asking if I was happy. I asked him what happened and he said he missed his flight, just like I wanted. He came home and lost it, saying I cost him his business trip, which is supposed to earn him money, and made him look unreliable and unprofessional, and compromised his work after I refused to do him this small favor and pack his bag. I responded that he shouldn't have hung out with his buddies literally hours before his flight, but he said he believed this was done spitefully to get him to sit home with me. I was shocked. No words, just shocked face. He called his friend saying his trip didn't happen, then turned to me and said thanks to me, then proceeded to ask where they were going to meet for dinner. He told me, "No trip means I'll be home for the next couple weeks. Isn't that what you wanted? Great, we'll both now stay home and wallow in misery. God bless." Then walked out. Am I the jerk? He said I caused him issues at work. Should I have packed his bag anyway? Ugh, it sounds like you got a big man-child for a husband, honestly. Stays up all night playing video games, would rather go out with his friends than helping out around the house or getting ready for his big business trip, expects you to do everything for him and take care of him. I don't know, this sounds like the stereotypical lazy child of a husband. And if his argument is that he's the breadwinner because he does all the work and makes all the money, then this would fall under that category too. It's your big business trip and it's really important to make sure you're earning money. You gotta make sure you're ready for it. Honestly, it sounds like these kinds of things happen a lot between these two. Or the wife wouldn't have seen it as such a big deal and just taken care of it for him. It's really hard to side with the husband in any way here. I guess the only thing I could say is that maybe this could have been done in a way that wasn't quite so detrimental. If there's fallout for him and this as a result hurts the family financially, then there was a better way this could have been handled. But ultimately, I don't blame you for not babying him. I'm forever scarred from ever using soy sauce again. So I love soy sauce. I add it to almost everything as seasoning. Eggs, noodles, veggies, you name it. Today was no different. I made myself some ramen noodles with veggies, poured some good old soy sauce over it, and was munching happily on it. It was delicious. Life was good. Now, the soy sauce I use has a small opening, and when you want to use it, you just tilt it and it pours out. You can unscrew the top off for refilling with soy sauce if you ever run out though. I always thought thought that it was very handy. No annoying cap opening or anything like that. Until today. It's still pretty hot where I live and there's fruit flies everywhere. You leave your food uncovered for 1 minute and there's a whole invasion of them on it. Now, as I was chomping down on my food, I suddenly see a movement inside the soy sauce bottle. One of these annoying little guys actually managed to squeeze through the tiny opening and is now flying around in there. Now, that's obviously disgusting. No one wants flies in their food. I had to get it out of the bottle so it wouldn't land in my next dish. So I quickly grab a cup and a sieve to get it out. I open the bottle and pour the sauce into the cup through the sieve. The little guy lands in the sieve, but something else lands in it as well. At first I thought it was just old soy sauce that had somehow clumped together. Oh, how I was wrong. I take a closer look and I'm realizing it's a huge pile of dead fruit flies. I'm not kidding. It was like the amount of 2 tablespoons, and the bottle was pretty small. I gagged and immediately drained the whole bottle. I'm utterly disgusted and now have to live with the fact that I've been eating fruit flies for a good amount of time. I wonder if I can ever use soy sauce normally again. Ugh, yeah, that is just disgusting. Lesson learned here, I hope, though. Just use something to cover it up next time or keep it in the fridge. I know we keep our soy sauce in the fridge. I feel like those little things that our poster's talking about is more used for restaurants and stuff like that, where they're constantly refilling it and cleaning them. Not necessarily for everyday home use. Mostly for this exact reason. My sister and brother-in-law set me up on a blind date and then accused me of embarrassing them when they knew I was not interested. I, 25-year-old female, have never been interested in romantic relationships. It just doesn't appeal to me. I'm very busy with grad school and work, and I like being on my own. I have friends and a dog, and that's honestly enough. I'm happy with my life. My family thinks this is weird beyond belief, and the pressure is ramped up now that even my younger brother has gotten married and I'm the only one left on the shelf. My older sister's husband has been offering to set me up for years because I'm too hot to stay single, whatever that means. I've always tried to refuse politely, but it's wearing thin. I was home visiting my parents this weekend and my sister invited me out to dinner at a new restaurant. It was an upscale place, so she said to wear something nice. I thought it was just going to be the 3 of us, but there was another guy in the car when they picked me up. He said he was my brother-in-law's friend Joe. Awkward, but not too unusual. We get to the restaurant and sit down, and Joe keeps trying to make conversation with me, with my brother-in-law and my sister egging it on. And I finally joke, "Am I on a date or something? What's with all the questions?" And my sister straight up says, "Yes, we thought you just needed a little push, so we decided to set you 2 up." I asked Joe if he knew about this, and he admitted that my brother-in-law had told him he wanted to set him up on a blind date, but that he was glad he came. So I was the only one who didn't know it was a date. I was pretty mad, but didn't really want to make a scene in the restaurant. So I finished dinner and gave really short responses to questions. "So you're in the PhD program?" "Yes." "What's that like?" "Busy." And the evening just stayed really uncomfortable and awkward. Joe apologized in the car and I told him it wasn't his fault, but he probably shouldn't let my brother-in-law set him up again, and I wasn't interested in dating anyone. Apparently, he told my brother-in-law off in the car about making him look bad so that he didn't even have a chance. My sister's mad because I was rude and embarrassed them, when they were just trying to help me out of my shell. My parents think I should have appreciated the gesture and given Joe a chance because you never know, and want me to apologize. Was I the jerk? I'm gonna say this one isn't necessarily so black and white. Yes, your family should be respecting your wishes and that you're not interested in dating anyone at this time. But at the same time, they also want you to be happy. And they understand that having a significant other can make you happier than you probably realize. At this point, if you've never really had a serious relationship, then you don't necessarily understand what you're missing out on. And maybe they just wanted to show you that. Either way, at the end of the day, your wishes come first. You need to be a willing participant if there's actually going to be any progress made here, and that's something that they need to understand. My brother's girlfriend tried to ditch her daughter with me, so I threatened to call the police for abandonment. I'm a 30-year-old female. I have a brother, Matt, 35, who's been with his girlfriend Lexi, 33, for 2 years. Lexi has a daughter, Bella, who's 5. I have a daughter who's 3 years old. We all live in the same city, but Matt and Lexi live in the suburbs, and I live in the city center, so about 45 minutes away. While I see Matt on average every 3 weeks, I only see Lexi and Bella every 2 to 3 months at my parents' house or for occasions and gatherings. 2 days ago, I got a text from Lexi asking me to babysit Bella on Wednesday because she wouldn't be at school due to the teachers being on strike. She said that she forgot about the strike and had not taken the day off work, and had also made social plans for after her shift. I said no to babysitting and thought that was that. Yesterday, around lunchtime, I was having a skin treatment when one of my cleaners came to tell me that Lexi had dropped off Bella. The cleaner had answered the door and Lexi had said that she'd arranged to leave Bella with us, and the cleaner was unaware that this wasn't the plan and let her in. Lexi then left. I was livid. I immediately called Lexi, and after 4 declined calls and voicemails, I sent her a text saying that if she didn't return for her daughter within 15 minutes, I was going to call the police to say she'd abandoned her child. I find my husband to tell him what's going on, and he calls Matt and tells him to sort this out. A few minutes after speaking to Matt, Lexi reappears. She marches straight into the den where Bella's watching TV, saying how evil we were for telling Matt and threatening to call the police. I tried to get her to come and speak in the study so Bella couldn't hear, but she just kept going on. I reminded her that she intentionally abandoned her child, but she kept going on about how she was desperate and needed to go on this social arrangement, and how she never has time to do anything. I reiterated that be that as it may, she can't just leave Bella with us when we didn't agree to it. Lexi kept bringing up excuses until my husband lost it and told her in no uncertain terms to leave. By this point, Bella was in hysterics and Lexi seemed totally frazzled. This has since turned into a big thing. Lexi has been posting cryptic things on social media about how hard it is to be a mother when people you expect to be there for you won't help you. I've received text from her saying Bella is devastated to find out that we don't like her. I've now blocked Lexi. My parents have heard about it, and while my mother is firmly on my side, my dad said, was it really worth upsetting Bella when she was already there? Matt says that while Lexi was in the wrong, once she had left, we probably should have just kept Bella and argued about it later. Matt also thinks my husband owes Lexi an apology for intimidating her, which I don't think he does. So you guys tell me, who's the jerk in this one? I feel like this is another story where we've got a couple of jerks. There's no question that Lexi's in the wrong on this one for just ditching her daughter without there being an agreement. But at the same time, it kind of sounds like our original poster didn't have a lot of other stuff going on. Apparently, she was getting an in-home skin treatment while the cleaners took care of the house. Sounds like a pretty comfortable life. Meanwhile, it sounds like Lexi might be struggling and is just trying to find a little bit of time for herself. I feel like there could have been a little sympathy here and maybe you just look after the kid for the afternoon. And it also doesn't hurt to get a little bit closer to her, considering she lives with your brother and could potentially be your sister-in-law at some point. And threatening to call the police for abandonment is just going overboard. At that point, you're just trying to start problems. So I can't really have a whole lot of sympathy for you. My husband thinks I'm the jerk because I took my stepson to see the doctor without his permission. I, 25-year-old female, live with my husband, 29-year-old male, and my stepson, 7-year-old male. My husband has full custody of my stepson, Riley. Riley has always been a late bloomer. When I started dating my husband, Riley was 5, and he still took naps even though most children grow out of them by then. When he turned 6, he stopped needing naps during the day except when he was sick or did a lot of physical activity. Riley also has ADHD, and so do I. So I know that the hyperactivity can cause children to tire out sometimes. A few weeks ago, Riley started taking naps again for around an hour a day. He also began falling asleep on car rides. The length of time he napped kept increasing, and he now naps for 3 hours a day, meaning that he's asleep 13 to 14 hours a day. I usually pick him up from school and his teacher tells me that he's exhausted and yawning the whole day. I became extremely concerned and I told my husband that Riley needed to see a doctor, but he didn't think it was serious. He just figured that Riley was sleeping more because he was growing, but I was still worried. I admittedly don't know much about children, as I'm the youngest on both sides of my family, But I spoke to my parents, in-laws, and searched online, and they all said it was weird. My in-laws did mention that my husband slept a lot as a child, but not to the extent that my stepson does. My husband still didn't want to take Riley to see the doctor. I decided to make an appointment for Riley anyway, and he saw the doctor yesterday. The doctor was very concerned and he arranged a blood test for next week. And he also gave me a list of foods to cook for Riley to improve his energy levels. When I told my husband, he was peeved that I had gone behind his back about his son's healthcare. He wants me to apologize, but I believe I was acting in Riley's best interest. Most people I've spoken to have said that I was wrong because Riley isn't my son, but I'd like your guys' opinion. Am I the jerk? So, from my point of view, you're essentially acting as this child's mother. You didn't do anything any other parent wouldn't. You're worried about the child and want to make sure that they're okay. It's not really your fault that dad isn't taking this seriously enough. At the end of the day, it doesn't hurt to at least take him to the doctor and see if maybe there's something wrong. It's not as if you made a serious decision regarding his health or anything like that. You literally just want to make sure he's okay. And it's really hard for me to argue that you're a jerk for doing that. I do understand that a lot of people are very protective of their kids, and this might be crossing a boundary of some sorts. But it's all in the child's best interest. I really don't think our original poster has done anything wrong here. At the end of the day, he's a young boy and he should have a lot of energy. So it's understandable that our poster would be concerned about his current situation. But let me know what you guys think about this one, because it is a bit of a gray area. My girlfriend asked my friend to hook up with her, so I made her prom night a living nightmare. Here's what happened. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell for notifications. I was always a grade-focused student and missed out on a lot of high school experiences, like having a girlfriend. My senior year, I loosened up and started dating. Eventually, I met a foreign transfer student who shared common interests with me, and she became my girlfriend after a month of casual dates. Because she grew up mostly outside the US, she dreamed of going to a real prom. I was stoked to take her and make her dream come true. However, a few weeks before the dance, I found out through friends that she was texting another guy if he was down to hook up. She didn't know I tutored this guy before and we were friendly. Once he found out I was her boyfriend, he showed me her texts and told me nothing happened. I wasn't angry with him, but I was livid with her, and I played it off like I knew nothing. She excitedly bought her dress and made appointments to get her hair and makeup done and kept talking about plans for the dance. The day of prom, I texted her that I knew about her attempts to cheat and that we were done. I went with a close female friend who knew the situation and needed a date. We had a great time and made awesome memories. My ex never got to go to her senior prom because she couldn't get another date last minute. And it scarred her emotionally and mentally because she not only got labeled as a cheater at our high school, but her dream never came true. Years later, friends tell me she's still extremely bitter about missing out on the epitome of high school dances. I feel no guilt. She was the jerk. Yeah, I can't say I would really feel too bad about that either. Surely she has to understand that she had it coming. She can't really blame our original poster for behaving the way he did. Could he have been more mature about it? Sure. But he was also a teenager in high school, and this was maybe his first girlfriend. Obviously, when you feel slighted like that, that really hurts. And you're gonna want to hurt that other person a little bit too. I don't hold anything against our poster for this one. Definitely not the jerk. This girl just needs to let it go. She had it coming. I'm willing to bet that when she tells this story complaining about how she didn't get to go to prom, that she probably leaves out the bit where she was trying to cheat on her prom date. Oh, I'm sorry, the leaf blower's too loud? Hold on, I have something else. So this happened to my aunt's gardener. So my aunt just moved into a new neighborhood. She hired a gardener to blow all the leaves off of the property. It was the weekend, and apparently in the neighborhood there's a ban of sound over 80 decibels on the weekend. So the lady from the neighboring house came over and said, "We've called the police. Just wanted to let you know so it isn't awkward." What? You could have just asked. So the poor gardener gets a written warning and has to go. Now, later that week, the gardener calls and explains that he has a workaround and can resume work on the weekend. Obviously, we're wondering what's going to satisfy this crazy lady. Come Saturday, the gardener pulls up in his truck this time. Suddenly, it starts roaring much louder than any of the leaf blowers. Turns out there isn't a law against banning mulch munchers from running, and this one is much louder than anything else the gardener has. He then proceeds to mask the leaf blowers with the mulch muncher. The lady storms out, takes one look, and goes back in. Turns out the police completely rejected her call, and she now has to live with this loud beast every Saturday for an hour. Very well played, sir. I like this one. At what point does the lady just come out and say, okay, you win, just use the dang leaf blower? I just imagine her sitting in her house all petty, not willing to admit that she's way more miserable now. I do kind of feel bad for all the other neighbors that have to deal with it though. A little bit of malicious compliance for a racist customer. This one's short and sweet. I work for a flooring company running installation for one of our markets. The vast majority of the crews that work for us are filled with guys and the occasional gal from Central America. Being in a state with blue cities and red country between, we definitely get some of the good old boy mentality from some of our customers. We had an install go out months ago, and the customer specifically requested, "Don't send no dirty Mexicans to my house." While we have some guys from Mexico, we truly have the gamut of Central America represented in our subcontractors. So we do our schedule, not sending one of the guys from Mexico. The salesman was in the installation office when the customer called, rather frustrated. "I thought I told you not to send Mexicans out here." "Yes, sir, you did." "So why are there Mexicans at my door saying they're from your company?" "Well, sir, it looks like Gustavo is out to your house today. Gustavo is actually from Honduras." At that point, the rest of us couldn't hold in our laughter, so the salesman left the office to finish the call. Gustavo and his crew were allowed into the house to install the flooring, but we haven't made a repeat sale to the same customer just yet. Way to paint with a broad brush, dude. Not only do you straight up say no Mexicans, but then someone comes to your door and you assume they're Mexican just because of the way they look and sound. There are many different countries that this person could potentially be from, but you assume he's from Mexico, which you hate for whatever reason or another. Just let the guy do his work. He doesn't give a crap about you. I get a beautiful engagement ring, and all of a sudden my mom feels the need to upgrade her wedding ring. My fiance said that my mom told her husband that she wanted to upgrade hers the moment she saw the ring my fiance had picked for me when he asked for their blessing. "Time for an upgrade," is exactly what she said. It's been a few weeks and they went to get a quote on her ring to trade it in, which at first I was fine with, and kind of teased her because I thought it was silly she was jealous. I told her as long as it doesn't look like mine, and they both confirmed it wouldn't be as she likes a different cut. Well, she came out with a massive similar shaped stone with a huge thick band made of smaller diamonds, but still larger than average, mind you. They sent us all a photo of it, and it's nuts how much they spent on it. When I asked her why she really needed such a large piece, she told me I didn't deserve to have a larger ring than hers because I'm not even married yet. So they had agreed to get her a bigger one because she earned it. First of all, I think this is insane to equate your self-worth to a ring. But what? And secondly, they said they've been having money problems, and the amount they spent seems irresponsible. I just wanted to vent a little and see if anyone has had a similar thing happen. This sounds like a jerk move to me. I'll be honest, this doesn't sound like a jerk move, it just sounds like straight up stupidity. There's literally no need for this purchase. And apparently it was a large purchase and at a time where you couldn't really afford it. All because you're jealous your daughter got a nicer ring? That's gotta be one of the stupidest, pettiest things I've ever heard. I know sometimes down the line people do like to upgrade their initial rings once they're in a better financial situation. But that's it. Once you're in a better financial situation. Not because your daughter just got engaged and you feel jealous. I banned my future mother-in-law from our wedding after she said some horrible things to me. I, 27-year-old female, am getting married to my lovely fiancé, 31-year-old male, this summer. I have a daughter from a previous partner, Hannah, who's 8, and my fiance has a son, Riley, who's 10. Hannah and Riley are the reason my fiance and I started dating each other all those years ago. They became best friends in their swimming class a few years ago, and my fiance and I met like that. For this reason, we decided to try and incorporate them into the wedding somehow in age-appropriate roles that will be easy for them. My fiance's mother has always hated me. She thinks I'm gross for having been a teen mom, and she believes her son deserves someone better, i.e. a virgin. As you can see, she's very sexist. She thinks I'm an unchaste streetwalker here to ruin her son, which is extremely ironic because I was actually married to my daughter's father when she was conceived, and he left during the pregnancy. But my fiance had a shotgun wedding to his son's mother when she was 2 months pregnant. I was at my fiance's house yesterday and we were talking about what role we could put his son in for the wedding. My fiance's mother popped in unexpectedly. She asked about what we were discussing. My fiance told her we were finding a role for his son in the wedding, and he said that my daughter was going to be a flower girl. She responded by saying my daughter should be kept away from the ceremony, because otherwise everyone will know he's marrying a used woman. She said it in a different language, but I still understood. I saw red and started shouting at her. I've tried to be respectful for years, and I had enough. I told her that she was banned from the wedding and my fiance kicked her out of the house. We're both being bombarded with texts and calls saying that we're wrong for banning her, and people specifically asking me to let her come because they know my fiance will keep her banned until I say so. They kept saying that watching your child get married is a beautiful thing, and I'm depriving her of that because his first wedding was a mess. I'm starting to feel like I should unban her. Am I the jerk? I'm sorry, no, absolutely not. This woman is horrible. Screw her, she can stay away from the wedding. It doesn't even sound like she's one of the people that is called to apologize. So why would you want to re-invite her? She hasn't shown any remorse for what she said yet, and apparently this has been going on for years. This is supposed to be some blessed day where she's happy for her son, but with her attitude, how can she be happy for him if she hates his new bride that much? No, you hold all the cards here. You're gonna have to deal with this woman for the rest of your life if you give in here. She needs to understand that she needs to respect you. And if she can't manage to do that, then she's gonna be able to see her son and future grandkids a lot less. I refuse to invite my mom to my engagement. I, 27-year-old male, am planning on proposing to my girlfriend of 2 years, Maddie, 27-year-old female. Planning on doing it by a lake, and I've already talked to her family and they'll be there. I've talked to my friends and her friends. From my immediate family, I decided to only invite my dad. He said this was a jerk move because it would be tough to not bring his wife, and it would create more of a rift. This will also be how the wedding will be, him getting a solo invite. So I told him if he doesn't want to come, I understand. But he should know I'll save the postage if he doesn't want to come to the engagement. Me and him went back and forth, so I decided to post here for a judgment. The situation with my sisters and mom stems back to my sister's wedding 2 years ago. My two sisters are Bella, 29, and Sarah, 25. Bella got married back in 2019. I liked the guy and we became decent friends when I was a groomsman. I live halfway across the country, so traveling back is tough, and I only do it for big events. I was heavily involved in my sister's first wedding. I went to the showers, bachelor party, wedding, and it was a pretty expensive couple of weeks, but I was willing. 2 years ago, my sister cheats on her husband with her current husband, gets a divorce, and engaged within like 3 months. I was across the country and not tuned into the situation, but my mom's stance on it still peeves me. She was always the big do the right thing type, religious and judgmental of others. Whenever she told me about the second wedding happening, I was like, am I supposed to support this? She got livid and said I need to be there and support as a family member. I said if she would pay my ticket, my hotel, and all my other expenses to come home, then I would. But I'm not dropping $1,000 to come home for a cheater's second wedding within 3 years, who didn't even respect her first marriage. My mom lost it on me and said she would not pay for me, but I had to be there. I said, I heard you're dropping like $10,000 on this wedding, so you'll finance a second wedding, but not your son's plane ticket home. She hung up, and that's been pretty much the last conversation we've had. I didn't go to the wedding. I also refused Bella's husband's offer to be a groomsman, which peeved off my other sister. Because of all the drama, I was told not to come home for the holidays. I was given the silent treatment by my mom and sisters. I started dating my girlfriend around this time and we went on a trip. I posted pictures of us and my sisters commented under the photos rude things about me being too cheap to buy a plane ticket but will spend money on trips. So I blocked them both and haven't spoken to them since. My dad is the only one I keep in contact with, so that's why he's getting a solo invite. He wants the drama to end and thinks me giving a solo invite puts him in a losing position. I told him that it's his wife's fault the situation is where it's at. But you guys tell me, is this a jerk move? While I see your point of view, I do feel like you're being a jerk. We don't know what was going on behind closed doors for your sister's first wedding, and you chose not to support her for the second one, when you did have money available since you went on a trip shortly afterwards. I'm not saying what your sister did was right, but at the end of the day, if this is your family and you're writing out the whole family as a result, can you say it was worth it to really stick to your guns on this one? This really just doesn't feel worth it to me. Despite whatever happened with the first marriage, I would still want my sister to be happy and want her to know that I support her. Not saying mom's exactly handling this the best way either, but I feel like a lot of it is falling to you here. And yeah, you are putting your dad in a really tough spot here. I personally really wouldn't want to be in his situation. I do think you need to make some kind of effort here to try and make peace. This is starting to feel petty. My boyfriend wants me to get my tattoo laser removed because it relates to my ex, but I refused. I, 23-year-old female, have a friendship tattoo with my female best friend April and my ex-boyfriend Rory, as the three of us were best friends from the moment we saw each other in high school when we were 14. I got together with my ex when we were 17, got the tattoo when we were 18, stayed with Rory for 3 years, then broke up. And now, after another 3 years, we're still friends. So it never really occurred to me to do anything about the tattoo. It means a lot to me. Nothing special though, just a triangle with 3 dots inside representing the 3 of us. No one would ever guess what it is. All of us have it on the back of our legs. I got together with my current boyfriend, 24-year-old male, a few months ago. And I made it clear from the start that I'm still friends with my ex and nothing is going to change that. I see him about 2 or 3 times a year because he moved to a different country, so it shouldn't cause much of an issue anyway. So my boyfriend, let's call him Edward, was very chill about this. So I agreed to actually get together instead of just dating. Fast forward to a week ago, he noticed the tattoo on the back of my leg and asked if it had any meaning. So I told him the 3 dots are me, April, and Rory, and we all have the same one. Upon hearing this, Edward got super upset. And after a heated argument, he told me if I truly loved him, I would immediately get it either removed or covered up. Now, there's absolutely no way I'm doing that, and I told him so. We haven't talked since, and I'm honestly starting to question whether I'm in the right for wanting to keep my only tattoo as it is. I love Edward, but it doesn't sit right with me to remove something so important to me just so he'd stay with me. Also, I don't understand why it made him so upset, since he knew I'm still friends with Rory. He refuses to talk to me now until I get it removed. I told him he was being pathetic and to think this through again. We're still not talking, and it's either I get an appointment or we break up. He won't change his mind. So, am I being the jerk here? This really sounds like your current boyfriend's insecurity more than anything else. As you've laid the situation out here in your post, I completely understand why you would want to keep it. It's your only tattoo and it has a lot of meaning to you from that time in your life. Also, I think there's a lot of meaning to the timeline here if we look at it. You guys became very good friends when you were 14 and got together when you were 17. This is understandable if there's someone of the opposite gender who you get along very well with that maybe you would want to explore a relationship. Then, after 3 years, you guys decided to break up and are still friends. meaning you've both taken the measure of this relationship and understand where it's best, with you guys as just friends. If anything, that's more reassuring to me. I don't think that your current boyfriend should be jealous at all. You and Rory broke up for a reason. You're with him for a reason. Now, mind you, you said you've only been with this guy for a few months. I don't think he trumps the importance of the relationship that you've had for years with your two best friends. Regardless of whether or not two of you experimented with a relationship at one point, your boyfriend really just needs to get it together. And if he can't, maybe this is a win, getting out of this early before there could have been bigger issues down the line. I've been labeled the villain for buying my daughter the PS5 that she deserves. My ex and I have a 14-year-old daughter together. She also has two other kids who are a 16-year-old male and 11-year-old female. We have 50-50 custody. Here's the problem. My daughter loves gaming. She's been begging her mom and I to buy her a PS5. I bought one for her a few weeks ago, but I didn't give it to her right away. I decided to wait until after an important and difficult exam that she had and give it to her as a prize for getting an A+ in that exam, which I knew she would. A few days ago, my ex called me and asked me not to buy a PS5 for my daughter, as apparently she's been gloating to her siblings and making them jealous because their parents are financially struggling and they can't have as many privileges as my daughter. My ex gave me a long lecture about how she doesn't deserve another privilege because of her behavior. I told her I will consider it, but I didn't promise her anything. Well, she got her exam results a couple of days ago, and not only did she get an A+, she was the only A+ in her grade. I was extremely proud and decided that she deserves getting her new PS5 and gave it to her. Yesterday, I took her to her mom's house, and a few minutes after I left, my ex called screaming at me asking why I did it, when she specifically asked me not to. She thinks I'm a huge jerk for doing this, but I think as her dad, I should be able to decide what my daughter does or does not deserve, and my ex doesn't have the right to tell me what to do. Yeah, I got to agree with Dad on this one. The daughter has definitely deserved this. At the same time, I do think a conversation needs to happen to make sure she understands how to be humble. It's not okay to make others feel bad about having nicer things. If this is a persistent problem with her, then maybe it gets taken away for a little bit. But from what I can tell here, she absolutely deserves it. Father mocks cashier with a speech impediment, so I teach him a lesson he'll never forget. Here's what happened. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell for notifications. I was at a craft store in my town and it wasn't too busy, but only one register was open. The cashier, a teenage girl I could tell was working as best as she could. The process was a tad slower, however, because she had a stutter and a bit of a lisp. As she worked through the line, asking the usual questions, probably mandated by the bigwigs. I've worked in retail, it's a thing. The man behind me began to huff and puff. He muttered something about having places to go and he was in a hurry, etc. I ignored him until I heard him start to mock her to his kids. Would you look like your receipt? The kids began to laugh. It really made my blood boil, especially since I could tell the cashier had heard his mockery. That really made my blood boil. When a person doesn't respect retail employees as people, it's the best way to tell whether a person is a jerk or not. So when it was my turn at the register, she asked me in a small voice, "Are you a member of our rewards club?" And I looked smugly at the guy behind me and back at her. The rewards club? Oh, that sounds great. Please explain it to me. She seemed surprised at first, but then looked at the guy behind me and it seemed to click. I've never given my information so slowly in my life. Never had I asked as many questions as I did. She smiled and answered my inquiries while the guy behind me was seething. "Can you hurry up, please?" And miss out on all these great rewards? As if. I only held him up for about 5 minutes. But oh, did it feel so good. Good for you. I hope he was really embarrassed in front of his kids after that, because he knows exactly why you were doing what you were doing. It's really horrible that someone would mock someone for just the way they speak, but to do so in front of your kids to get a laugh at it is just bad parenting. This jerk could afford to lose 5 minutes to hopefully learn a lesson out of this. Stuck-up middle manager says my clothing isn't appropriate for the workplace and forces me to leave. and as a result, ends up losing a big client. I like to keep fit, so after my workday, I usually go for a run in the nearby park. I've stayed away from gyms, especially during COVID. When my day's over, I slip into the women's room to change and then leave immediately. Except there was this one day a few weeks ago when someone from another team, Becky, was having trouble running macros in Excel. I don't know the specifics of the document, but suffice to say, it was the final piece of the puzzle for a big account. So, having changed and on my way out, I hear Becky call me over and asked for some help before I left. She's a good kid, new to the company. So of course, I stopped to explain a few things. That's when her team leader, Lewis, stops me and says I shouldn't be in the office in my workout clothes. I'm not wearing anything too immodest, but I am wearing clothes suited for running, so sports bra and shorts. I don't want to brag, but I'm in good shape and rather well endowed. Lewis is sort of a middle manager who isn't powerful enough to be a kingmaker, but just powerful enough to cause a stink about company policies. He's also a repressed prude. I explained that I was on my way out, not just hanging out to work, and stopped to help Becky. Lewis is hearing none of it. He insists that I either change back to my work clothes or leave the premises immediately. I'm not gonna let Lewis push me around, so I apologize to Becky and leave the building. Later on, I learned that night was a deadline for some client deliverables and Lewis's team didn't make it, costing the company the account and lots of money, low 6 digits annually. Lewis was fired for losing the account and for making Becky do a part of the project that she wasn't qualified to do and that he was supposed to do himself. Becky is still with the company, and she and I are now paired in a mentorship program. I wish I could say I jog past Lewis sitting on a bench in the park every evening, but things don't always tie up that neatly. But still, as long as I don't have to deal with that jerk anymore, I'm happy. This one just feels like a massive facepalm. You're calling out our original poster for helping one of your teammates who's struggling on a big project that's due tonight because she's wearing workout clothes? Because she stopped for a minute on the way out the door? If you're going to be such a stickler for company policies, how about you do it for the deadlines that you're supposed to meet? And do the work that you're supposed to do, instead of passing it on to someone else who doesn't know how to handle it. You made your own bed this time, Lewis. My girlfriend couldn't pay for herself during our vacation and now is telling me she doesn't think it's going to work out. My girlfriend, myself, my parents, and my brother and his wife all went on vacation in another country a week ago. My brother and I were the ones who did most of the planning of the itinerary, although we did ask everyone else for input. For background, I make about $150,000 as an IT consultant. My girlfriend is a teacher making $45,000. My parents are pretty affluent, as well as my brother and sister-in-law. My girlfriend knew this trip was coming up and took on a second job waitressing on the weekends for several months to get ready for it. We've always split things 50-50 in the 2 years we've been together. There were a few times on the vacation where she didn't go out on outings with us, wine tasting, scuba diving, etc. She would only eat 2 meals a day, simply stating that she was on a budget. My family does favor more high-end, expensive places. My parents thought it was very strange that she only eats 2 meals a day, although normally she eats 3. When I got home, I asked her why she skipped out on several of the outings and only ate 2 meals a day. I mentioned how I heard her stomach growling one night and said I was concerned about her having an eating disorder. She got teary-eyed and said that 3 meals a day wasn't fiscally feasible for her, and neither were the outings that she chose not to go on. She went on 3 of 6 outings. She said she wasn't expecting everything to cost so much and she was overwhelmed. She also said she doesn't know if this is going to work long-term if she's expected to go on vacations like that with people who make so much more than her. I feel bad that I didn't pick up on her discomfort sooner, but we did agree to split everything 50-50, and I don't know why she agreed to come if the cost was an issue. Am I the jerk here? Yes, you are. And the fact that you're not sure and don't see the problem is the problem. This one really just got worse and worse as it went. Our poster did eventually clue into what was going on and did actually feel bad for not picking up on it sooner. But there's just so many red flags here. My first one, who describes their family as affluent? What a word to use. You sound like a rich snob, you know that, right? Second, you're making triple what your girlfriend makes. She took on a second job to be able to go on this vacation with you. And you're still not willing to bend a little bit to make sure that you guys can enjoy your time together? You seem to have made it very clear what your priorities are, and it's money. I'm not saying that you need to pay for everything for her, but you guys have been together for 2 years. You can afford to do it once in a while. My daughter needs surgery, but I don't want her to have it because of what happened to me. I, 30-year-old female, have been dealing with chronic medical issues all my life. I married my 33-year-old husband, L, a few years ago and had my daughter, A, 5, soon after. When I was pregnant with A, I was warned that it would be difficult due to my issues, and that she would likely have some passed on from me. I accepted this and I expected it. She was delivered and was a beautiful baby girl who didn't have my issues at the time. However, as she got older, it became more apparent that she inherited some of my medical problems, one of which has an optional surgery that could negate it entirely. It's possible to live with it instead of choosing to operate, but the surgery will eliminate it. I have some trauma with hospitals in general. I've had to be in and out of them my entire life, and it's left some deep wounds. It's awful to spend your formative years stuck in a sterile room with an IV and in pain. I've spent some time in therapy for it, but I still hate them. The surgery that would remove the problem is covered by insurance, so money isn't a problem. However, it has a long recovery period, and I don't want my daughter to have to suffer through that. I've told L that I don't want her to have to go through the lengthy process of recovery. He disagrees and has asked my family members to knock some sense into me. His words, not mine. It's become a big point of contention between us, and I refuse to budge. So, am I the jerk? Okay, so I understand what you're doing here. You're trying to look out for your daughter, but I feel like you're really focusing on the wrong thing here. She has a debilitating issue that surgery could solve, and you don't want it fixed because of an issue that might happen afterwards. She has a problem now. Let's fix that problem and worry about the potential of another problem after. You've kind of admitted that your viewpoint on this is skewed. You had a bad experience. It doesn't mean that your daughter will. All that you can do is try and make sure that her recovery period is the most fun she could possibly have. Yeah, it's gonna suck for a bit, but you're gonna be there to try and make it better for her. It seems very short-sighted to not address the issue she has because of something like this. You need to get past yourself and consider what your daughter needs. My girlfriend pranks and humiliates me in front of her friends and family, and then gets mad at me for leaving. I, 20-year-old male, had a girlfriend, 20-year-old female of 8 months, whom I recently went on what was supposed to be a week-long beach trip in Queensland with her and her friends and family. She had been planning this trip for a long time and was looking forward to it, especially since I'd get to know them all. On the 3rd day, we planned to go river floating. When we got there, I was looking through my bag before I went to change and couldn't find my trunks. I instead found a new navy blue pair. When I told her this, she replied, "Oh yeah, that's the extra one I packed in case you lost yours." I thought this was thoughtful. I changed into them and we all headed down to the river. We all got into our tubes and started floating off. About 3 minutes in, I feel my suit getting baggier, and I even notice a piece is falling off. I was disappointed that they were a cheap pair, but I kept going. Once we hit rapids, it got real though. I felt a sudden rush of cold water and I noticed my trunks have been torn clear off by the water. I stood up, covering myself with just the last piece. Everyone else, about 15 of her friends and family, started to laugh. I was absolutely horrified. One of my biggest fears is being naked in public, and now I was completely nude with no way to get back. I can't tell you how trapped and humiliated I felt. I had to spend the rest of the day with water up to my shoulders, feeling awkward and embarrassed the whole time. Whenever we were in shallow water, I was forced to stand up and walk exposed in front of them. They weren't prudish either. Her friends and parents made jokes and commented on my body as we went. Her young cousins made sure to comment on the shape and size of my junk whenever I couldn't cover myself also. When we got back to the beach, I had to run covering myself back to my towel. My day was completely ruined. I felt humiliated and angry. When we got back to our room, I was back into clothes trying to forget the day when my girlfriend comes in giggling to herself. She asked me if I liked the new swim trunks, and when I asked what she meant, she told me she had ordered a prank dissolving pair and replaced my other one with it. I was absolutely livid. She had purposefully exposed and violated me because she thought it'd be a good laugh. She even made sure not to pack another pair or a towel. I started yelling and she told me to calm down, saying that it was only a joke. I left that night, and I didn't call her the next day. She called screaming at me, acting like I was the one who had wronged her, saying that she had worked hard for this trip and that I was being immature. But I didn't want to be around someone who would humiliate me, especially considering that her own family and friends would be present. I can understand that I ruined the trip for her, but it feels like her own fault. Am I the jerk? This feels almost like a scene out of a sitcom or something. But assuming this is a real story, that's just incredibly disrespectful. I also would just feel absolutely humiliated in that situation. And when it's done to you by someone who's supposed to care about you and you're supposed to be able to trust, makes it that much worse. And I would think that she would understand why you would be upset and not turn around and get mad at you for leaving. What does she have to be mad about? Is she mad that you embarrassed her by leaving? Doesn't she understand that she's completely humiliated you? It goes both ways. If that's how she feels, then she should be able to imagine just a little bit where you're coming from. Honestly, this just sounds like a toxic relationship if this is the way it goes, and I would just be glad to be done with it. My father and his wife want me to go to therapy with them, but I told them it's too late. I'm a 16-year-old female and I have two brothers, 18 and 14. We lost our mom when we were 3, 5, and 7, and our dad remarried when we were 4, 6, and 8. It felt like they had known each other about a month when they got married, but it was possible that they were together longer. About a month after mom died, dad was in a widows and widowers group, and that's how he met his wife, Beth. Beth lost her husband and had no kids. When they remarried, they sat us down and told us Beth was going to adopt us. My older brother and I objected, but we were ignored. Around that time, we heard some extended family trying to talk them out of it as well, saying we would be taken care of if anything happened to our father. No need to go through with the adoption. Beth told them she was our mother now and the adoption needed to happen. We spoke to a social worker and the judge before the adoption happened. Initially, their request was rejected based on our conversations. But then, they came up with a story that we'd have nobody else to take care of us, and our family had already said they wouldn't raise us if anything happened to our dad. And it was done. My older brother and I never liked it. Younger brother didn't really know any better, but by age 7 was saying he wished he wasn't adopted as well. He could have just been copying us, but he says he really feels that way. So we have new birth certificates ever since the adoption, and her name is in the place of our mother. Found that out when I gave my mom's name in school one day and had to bring in my birth certificate and saw Beth's name. My brothers had no idea that it happened either. It peeved my older brother so much that he told Beth he hoped she would die and we could get adopted again since she was far more replaceable than mom. That incident made Beth and our father put him into therapy with them. That lasted for 2 years until he moved out last year. He then asked our maternal grandparents to adopt him since he couldn't find a way to reverse the adoption. Recently, Beth and my father have figured out that I want to do the same, and so does my younger brother. Beth broke down and said she just wanted the chance to be a mother and wanted us to love her back. My father suggested they do therapy with me and my brother, separate sessions with each of us, and that we try to work out a compromise. I told him it was too late for that. They had already erased mom and nothing they could say would make me feel different about what they did. I told Beth we were never her children, and she needed to accept the fact that she was never going to be loved back. My father told me that wasn't true. We could still work something out, like having our grandparents adopt us but call him and Beth mom and dad and let them still be parents and grandparents in the future. When I said there was no room for compromise and it was too late, they said I was being unfair. Am I the jerk? Unless there's some super secret thing about your mom that your dad doesn't want you to know about or something, I don't understand why they would be doing something like this. It really does sound like the dad was just trying to replace their mother as quickly and efficiently as possible. To have her name taken off their birth certificate and replaced with this woman that they don't even like just feels underhanded. Everything about this feels sneaky, almost like they're Indiana Jones trying to swap moms. Maybe they won't notice. I feel if you wanted a genuine relationship with your new stepkids, you needed to approach it as a genuine relationship and not trying to force it or trying to snake it in so that they legally have to love you or something. I'm totally behind the kids on this one. It's not them that has the issue, it's the parents. Our stepfather just couldn't get his act together, so my brother and I left him behind on our family vacation. I'm a 24-year-old female currently on a trip with my mother, brother, and stepfather. To shorten the story, I'll go straight to the point. Yesterday, we decided to leave our Airbnb around 8 a.m. because we were taking public transportation to save some money, and had a guide visit at 9:30 a.m. at the Edinburgh Castle, and according to Google Maps, it would take us around 45 minutes to get there. Everybody got ready on time, except my stepfather Daniel, male 46, who couldn't decide what jacket to wear. That already made us a couple of minutes late, but wouldn't miss the bus. He then picked out a very big and heavy red jacket. We all asked him multiple times if he was sure about his choice because the jacket was a lot to carry around all day, but he said he was certain. The walking distance from the Airbnb to the bus stop was about 10 minutes. We left the house around 8:10 a.m. and the bus was supposed to arrive at 8:25. As soon as we arrived at the bus stop, Daniel decided that we were right and the red jacket was too much, then went back to change, which made us miss the first bus. My brother and I got a little annoyed, but Mom said we had time. Daniel took 15 minutes to return, then said he was going back because the jacket he picked now wasn't warm enough. That made us miss the second bus. He came back wearing the exact same jacket because he got lost and couldn't find the house. It's a suburban area and the houses all look very similar. At this point, we all were very irritated, but he went back anyway. The third bus was arriving and my brother and I decided we wanted to take it. Mom didn't like that and asked us to wait. We agreed for her, but guess what? We missed the third bus. Now, there was a chance of us being late because it was around 8:45 at this point. Daniel returned and everything seemed fine. We waited for the bus, and as it got there, Daniel tried to find his phone but couldn't. He'd forgotten it at the Airbnb. My brother and I had enough and wouldn't miss this bus. We went ahead and said that we'd meet them at the castle. They arrived at 10 a.m. and couldn't join the guided tour, but we did. Daniel was upset and said that we had the whole day to visit the castle and wouldn't have made a difference what time we had arrived. Mom supported us but said she talked to Daniel and he'll apologize if we do the same. But I feel like we didn't do anything wrong. But according to him, we were kind of jerks. I don't want this to drag on and ruin the vacation. What do you guys think? I think an exchange of apologies is fine at this point. I don't think Daniel was doing this on purpose, but he really does need to get his act together. It's totally understandable that you guys got fed up and left. And it's also understandable that he would feel a little hurt that you guys did. I think a simple exchange of apologies here is fine, even though I would agree that you're not exactly in the wrong per se.
Horse Karen attacks me because I disturbed her horse's relaxation time. Here's what happened. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell for notifications. This isn't really much of an entitled parent and more of an entitled pet parent, which I found to be almost worse than regular entitled parents. So I have a barn and there's plenty of space, so some people board their horses at my barn. Anyway, I was out there one day with my horse and wanted to ride in the indoor arena because it was super hot out and the dusty outdoor arena didn't sound very pleasant at the time. Besides, there were already people riding around outside. I went in the barn to tack up my horse and all was going well, until I got my saddle out and was cinching it up. One of the boarders approached me. For our cast today, we have me, the entitled pet mom, and the nice boarder. Entitled pet mom. Can you please take your horse outside? My horse is relaxing right now and he doesn't like other horses. Me. What do you mean? I look up and see her horse is loose in the arena rolling around in the dirt and whatnot. Honestly, just being a horse. Well, I rode him earlier and he needs to relax. Ma'am, on the rule board, it says horses can't be loose in the barn when there's other riders in the area. There's a round pen for that. We usually use the round pen for warming horses up or training foals, but it's way too small to ride in, which is why we let people let their horses loose in there.
But it's so hot outside and my poor baby can't handle that. Besides, everyone else is riding outside.
Well, I don't allow horses to be on the loose in the indoor arena, so I'd like you to either put your horse away or move it to the round pen. I don't make exceptions.
Absolutely not. It's 90 degrees outside and my baby can't handle that.
Miss, it's just as hot in here as it is out there in the shade. Please move your horse. I would like to ride my horse in my barn that I own.
Why can't you ride outside?
Because it's 90 degrees out and my poor baby can't handle that. It's my barn and I would like to ride here while following the rules. So please, if you don't move your horse, I'm gonna have to do it for you. I honestly don't know what set her off, but she got all flustered and started ripping the tack off my horse.
I pay to ride here. I can do what I want with my baby.
Ma'am, please don't. That tack is expensive.
Not unless you let my horse relax in here where it's cool.
I love horses as much as anybody, but it's just a horse, and they don't care if they're inside or outside. Now please, move your horse.
No, it's too hot out there. It's abuse. It's abuse. It's too hot. You have to take your horse outside now. I pay to be here and I can do what I want.
At this point, I'm really pissed off, so I re-tack my horse, tie her up out front, grab a halter, and go in to take her horse out of the barn. She was super mad and tried to hit me, but there were other people in there who were just finished riding.
This lady's taking my horse.
The nice boarder, she owns the place, she's not taking your horse. I could hear your banter from outside. They held her back while I moved her horse back to its stall. I handed her a new rules pamphlet and told her I expected her to have found a new barn by the end of the month. I honestly don't care I lost a client. She was a jerk, and I don't want that environment in my barn. How are you going to have that sense of entitlement on someone else's property? Surely you've sat down and met with the owner considering you're boarding your horse in her barn. I doubt this is the kind of thing where you wouldn't have met before. I really don't see what the big deal is. The owner made the point of it's just the same temperature outside in the shade. But where you are, you can't currently just have your horse loose. At the end of the day, it's for the safety of everyone, including you and your horse. Just follow the rules. Everyone else is able to do it. I took a conference call while I was duck hunting. This took place maybe in 2008 or so, but was the mid-2000s for sure. I was a manager, but had arranged time off to go duck hunting with friends. The day before I was to leave, I was pulled into a meeting due to an emergency, and there would be a war room conference with other offices the day after. I had nothing to contribute nor deliver for this meeting. It was merely higher pay grade than me folks hashing out a problem and then issuing directives. I said no, I'm not canceling a trip I planned for over a year with friends I hadn't seen in an incredibly long time to sit and listen to people argue. I got different replies from my manager and his manager. By different, I mean my manager was pleading. His manager basically said, show up or you're fired. I said, fine, I'll be on the conference call. Turns out, where we were hunting, I had cell signal, so I called in. During the meeting, my manager's manager called on me specifically to contribute. I figured he was making a point. I was talking and said, hang on a sec, and my friends and I started shooting. It was quick. There was 4 of us. 2 12-gauge shots each. I went back on to finish talking. I was asked, was there shooting? I said, yep, I'm duck hunting. Our regional VP asked, why are you on the call if you were off hunting? My reply was, I was told it's mandatory or I'm fired. My manager's manager began backpedaling and started saying I was a team player and knew the benefit, etc. Basically, that jerk was told, we'll take this offline. I took the weekly nationwide manager's call from the hot tub once. The VP asked, why do I hear water? I fessed up, and he asked if I thought it was appropriate. I reminded him that I traveled 90% of the time, and when I had a chance to be home and relax, I was gonna take it. He conceded the point and asked if I had any other input for the meeting. I suggested not having the weekly calls on Friday afternoons would be better for everyone involved. We moved the calls to Tuesdays. I wasn't trying to be a jerk, I'm just making a point. This isn't something I've ever had to deal with, but I know it's a thing, where everyone wants to have this big conference call and half the people don't even really know why they're there. It's kinda just wasting everyone's time. Especially when you work hard and finally have a day off, you don't want to have to be sitting there dealing with that. And considering he'd spent a year planning this hunting trip with friends that he hadn't seen in a long time, I'm sure the manager can acknowledge that he isn't really necessary for this meeting, and they can fill him in later. A lot of the times, it really just feels like a power move. To say something like, oh, you'll be there or you're fired, is really nothing more than just trying to flex. They know that there's no need for you to be there. They just want to make you miserable and show you that they can do it. The on-call technician gets mad at me for calling him when he's on call and gets fired as a result. I work tech support, and despite almost doubling my rates for new clients, and that rate was not bargain basement either to begin with, the work keeps on coming in. I know this wave isn't going to last forever, so I'm taking full advantage of the shortage in the labor market while I can do so. This means an average work week for me is around 70 to 80 hours, but again, I'm getting paid by the hour, so I don't really care. It's pretty much sleep, eat, work, repeat. I'm starting to feel like Scrooge McDuck and his money bin with the good times rolling. I just need to make sure to put enough away, so when the bottom falls out of this labor market and the leads dry up, I've got enough to lean on for a while. Anyway, here's a quick one that I just experienced. Enjoy. Here's the scene.
Hey, IT guy, when can you get that new server we were talking about?
The manager screamed over at me while I was tending to a network issue across the cubicle farm. Yeah, it's gonna be some time here, I say, looking at him annoyed.
Well, I need it up by the weekend if possible. Feel free to do any of the work at night if that helps.
Actually, it does. I might have some time this weekend. Who's my technical contact after hours?
Great, we really need that by Monday. If you have any hangups, just ping the on-call tech. They're usually around on the weekends anyhow.
Saturday night. I remember when I used to have a social life and hated it when the job took me for weekend work. But that seems like ancient history now. Now, a Saturday night is just like any other evening. This one though, I was about 4 cups of coffee in and knew sleep was not in the cards. So over to my client's office I go to finally tackle that server I'd been promising him. Should be about a 4 to 5 hour job to get it into production. Nothing special here. Just decommission the old one, restore a backup, optimize some stuff, and boom, I should be done. Home by midnight. Client will be happy, and I'll get a few more hours to bill this week. First things first, I show up and go to the location where the server was supposed to be. It's just gone. I look around in all the usual places. Nothing. I check the not so typical places where some of the house guys will put stuff. Nothing. Stumped, but not wanting to go home, I remember there is an on-call tech. I look through my email and see the announcement about who it is this weekend and give his number a call. It rings through to voicemail. It sounds like a personal phone number, so I leave a message. Callback time says 1 hour or less in the protocol, so I hunker down, doing some odd tasks while waiting for the return call. An hour later, I don't have a call, so I ring the number again. Once more through to voicemail. I leave another message asking if this is not the right person to please let me know. But I have a job that needs to be finished tonight, so give me a call back ASAP. I went to the bathroom and left my cell phone on a desk. When I come back, there are 5 missed calls. Thinking something is wrong, I page through the call logs to see it's the same number 5 times in a row in about 7 minutes. So I give it a call back, thinking it might be the on-call tech. First thing out of the mouth of the guy who answers,
How did you get this number?
I was taken aback. You called me 5 times in a row just now.
No, I didn't. Put me on your do not call list.
Hey, look, you called me. I figured it might be a return call for X company. I'm a contractor doing some work tonight.
You can't just go calling people in the middle of the night because you want to work.
According to the office email, you're the on-call tech.
I told my boss I don't want to do call anymore.
Well, tell that to the office admin who put down your name. The guy is clearly really annoyed, and this is a new client. I don't want to get a bad reputation, so I just try to make nice. But he would have none of it.
You contractors are all the same.
Blah, 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 as he dumped on contractors for 5 minutes. Look, man, I just need to know where the server might be. Someone moved it today, and I would really like to just get it up tonight.
This isn't why we have an on-call person on the weekends. It's for emergencies only. And you wanting to work ungodly hours on a Saturday night is not my emergency.
At this point, I just want an exit strategy. Okay, I got it. I'll just let my contact know that we couldn't locate the machine and see what he wants to do on Monday.
Go
got that right, bud. Don't call me again unless there's an actual emergency. Click.
As a consultant, I know it's best to keep everything in writing, if at all possible. So I start an email to my contact who's the site manager. Hey manager guy, I was at X company just now to get that server deployed and the physical machine is missing. I contacted the on-call tech, if you remember you told me to reach out to them with any problems, to see if they had any insight into its location. Unfortunately, the interaction I had with him was less than positive, and I don't think I'll be able to locate the server to get it up by this weekend. We'll talk on Monday. Sincerely, IT guy. I figured that was about as diplomatic as I could put it, even though I was mildly annoyed to have wasted at least 2 to 3 hours that night with all this drama. I didn't hear back for the rest of the weekend, but figured he might just be waiting until he saw me Monday morning. Turns out the site manager didn't email me because he was livid at the on-call tech. He and that guy had a history of duking it out over on-call assignments and other office-related politics. Apparently, it was fireworks galore, but unfortunately, I got there about 15 minutes after a few tables got flipped and the police had to be called. And also, apparently everyone hated this guy for a long time. I wouldn't know why. Word got out that the tech was sacked mostly because I complained about him. Now I have people coming up to me thanking me profusely for getting rid of the guy like I actually fired him. It was an odd way to curry favor with a new client, but hey, if it gets me more work, I'll take it. Also, the random people treating me like some sort of hero seeking me out to say thank you IT guy is icing on the cake. Apparently, I did everyone a favor just by calling that jerk. I do feel bad for our original poster for just getting caught up in the middle of all of this. Like, they're just doing their job as they were told to do it. They called the number that they were supposed to call if there was a problem. You can't really turn around and yell at the guy for that. He said, your number is the one they gave me. It's up to you to follow up with your office and make sure that that is not an option if you really don't want to be called. But it seems like there's already been some history of this anyway. So this, I guess, is just what it all had to come to. It is a shame that our poster didn't get to witness the climax of this story, but at least no one in that office has to deal with that guy again. It really sounds like he had some anger issues. My entitled sister demands I take her children to Disneyland with me and my girlfriend, despite knowing it's a secret proposal trip. So I, 31-year-old female, and my girlfriend, 32-year-old female, are planning a trip to Disneyland Paris. It's not as big as, say, Florida, but it's closer to us. It's also both of our first time going. And as my girlfriend is obsessed with Disney, it's where I'm planning to propose to her to make it more special. My sister knows I'm proposing as she helped me pick out the ring, and she was very supportive until she found out where I was planning to propose. She doesn't approve of it since we're not kids, and has stated that as we're not children, it's weird, and how if I wanted to go there, I should take her kids who are 10 and 6. I love my niece and nephew, but this is a special trip for me and my girlfriend. I explained this to my sister, and I thought she understood. But the next time I was over seeing her kids, they were upset, since she had told them about the Disney trip and they couldn't understand why I wouldn't take them. I tried to console them, but I felt very put on the spot and upset by this. I ended up leaving not long after, and my sister keeps badgering me to take their kids since they're now so upset. The worst part is my girlfriend is starting to feel guilty and wondering if we should just take the kids with us. I can't believe what a jerk she's being. This is a really manipulative move from your sister. As you said, this is supposed to be a very special trip for you and your girlfriend. Of course you don't want to be worrying about your niece and nephew while you're there. You're doing everything you can to try and make this proposal special, and she's just trying to wedge her kids in along the way. Obviously, that's not going to fit into your plan. It's just completely inconsiderate. I told my sister she needs to pay for childcare or I'm not going to her wedding. I'm a 25-year-old female. My sister, who's 28, is having her wedding in a couple of months. She recently sent out invitations. I was invited as a regular guest, not a bridesmaid or maid of honor since we live a state apart and obviously there's a certain level of involvement and time that goes into being part of a bridal party, which I understand. I want to be there for my sister, and obviously I'd like to see her get married. But the problem is, I'm a single mom. My son is 6, and when he's not at school, I need to be home watching him. So being out for hours at a time isn't really in the cards for me right now. My sister's wedding is child-free. Since it's taking place in her state, I'd need to commute, and I'd probably have to be gone from my house for 2 full days. I can't have family watch my son since they'll all be at the wedding, and I don't really have friends who will babysit for 2 days. I contacted my sister and asked if she'd be willing to let my son come to the wedding with me, and explained he couldn't be left alone so young and that I didn't have anyone to watch him. She responded by telling me her no children policy was strict and she wouldn't make exceptions. I explained my situation again and said I'd need some form of childcare or to bring him with me. I then asked her if she would send me money to hire a nanny or babysitter to watch him. She got offended and said children and weddings are both parts of life and that I just need to figure it out, it's my kid and my problem. Which, sure, that's true, but also her wedding. Her making it a problem by not allowing me to bring my kid. I told her she could either pay for my childcare or I wouldn't be going to her wedding. All she did was call me ridiculous and entitled. She said that she shouldn't have to pay for my child, and that part of being an adult is knowing how to take care of that kind of thing. I think that's ridiculous. Money is tight, childcare is expensive. I can't magically afford for someone to watch my 6-year-old, and most people would just let me bring him to the wedding. My sister says that she's definitely not paying for childcare, and that she guesses I'm not going to the wedding then. My whole family is mad at me for not being there for my sister. I'm not trying to force my sister to pay for anything, and it's totally fine if I can't come. She accepts that, and I just don't go. It only became a problem when my entire family came after me for not going to the wedding. I'm not mad at my sister for not paying. I'm mad at her for turning the family against me and saying that I don't want to come to the wedding and complaining about me behind my back to my parents. She complained about me not going to the wedding as if I was purposely avoiding it. So, am I the jerk? With that last bit of clarification, I really do think it cleared a lot of the original post up. Because yes, I understand that childcare is expensive. But I also understand not wanting to have kids at the wedding, because if you let one kid come, then all of a sudden everyone else wants to bring their kids as well. Now you have to plan for a whole bunch of kids at the wedding, and that can lead to more complications and a lot more expenses on the people who are actually paying for the wedding. And since they're dropping a lot of money on the wedding, to have to now pay for someone else's babysitter is just an added expense that they probably don't want to deal with. So I really do understand where everyone is coming from here, but I agree with our original poster that the family shouldn't have been turned on her. I don't think our original poster is a jerk for not going. They're accepting the unfortunate situation as it is. It seems as though it's the bride who's putting this extra pressure on the whole situation. I get wanting to have your sister at your wedding, but you're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place right now. The options for solutions here are limited. They were given and you weren't happy with those options. There's nothing else that our poster can do. I'm heavily pregnant and my fiance wants to go to his niece's graduation, but I don't want him to. So I'm currently 34 weeks pregnant with our first baby. My fiance's niece has her college graduation ceremony coming up in a couple of weeks. She invited both of us, but I said I can't really go in my condition. It's a few hours drive away, so we would have to stay overnight at least. My fiance is saying that he needs to go even if I don't, to support her because she asked us. I said we can send her a gift, but it's better if he stays with me since I'm near the end of the pregnancy. We've been going back and forth and arguing on this, and he said I wasn't being understanding. Am I the jerk? This is a tough one. I understand that your fiance wants to be there to support his niece. I imagine they have a really good relationship if he really wants to be there this bad. But it's just unfortunate timing that, yes, you're going to be very far along in your pregnancy by that point. I understand that you're going to want him around to help you feel more comfortable and to be there to take care of you. God forbid you go into labor while he's gone. I would say just have someone else from the family video call you guys and you guys can watch with them that way. But yes, I do think he needs to be there for you. It's 2 big points for 2 important people in his life, but your pregnant wife is gonna have to take precedence here.
My kid's teacher does not allow snacks in her class, but my kid is diabetic and hypoglycemic. Here's what happened. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell for notifications. I, 47-year-old female, have a daughter, 13-year-old female, who's a type 1 diabetic and sometimes hypoglycemic. Due to this, we set up a 504 that says she can eat a snack in class whenever needed, along with other accommodations. Anyway, at one point, one of her teachers, who's apparently a new teacher, denies her a snack while hypoglycemic. She nearly passes out, but in the next class she's in, the teacher has enough common sense to let her eat a snack before passing out at school. When she told me, I immediately called the teacher. When she called back, I lectured her and told her that she needed to let my daughter eat a snack when needed. She says snacks aren't allowed in class, but I tell her that due to my daughter's 504, she's legally required to give my daughter an exception to that rule, and recommended she give it another read. Before hanging up, I told her that if she ever does this again, I'll contact the principal and let him know. I recorded this call on my husband's phone, by the way. A month goes by and the same thing happens again. I request a meeting with the principal and my husband plays back the call between me and the teacher. I tell him she's done this twice and needs to have a talk with her. Turns out he actually fired her for ADA violations. How would I know? I ran into her at Publix. She told me it's my fault that I got her fired over some stupid snacks and I need to stop raising an entitled brat. Instead of arguing back, I just walked away. Was I really the jerk? Did I actually go too far? No need to worry here, original poster. You're not the jerk. This teacher needed to acknowledge this child's condition. Yes, there are rules. But there are also rules regarding the 504 that are meant to allow exceptions to those rules. You can't choose which rules you want to listen to. They are both rules. If you're so rule specific, you should be on top of all of them. And yes, she should get fired. She put your daughter at risk. And if she did this for your daughter, who knows what could happen with another kid who had another condition that she wasn't willing to accept? What if she has a peanut butter sandwich sitting on her desk for lunch and the kid in the front row has a nut allergy? Is she going to ignore that and potentially just leave it there and say he's being an entitled brat? It just doesn't make sense. You were just looking out for your kid. You did nothing wrong. This woman needs to get her crap together. Clearly she hasn't done it yet. A buddy of mine has essentially what is an anti-jerk button in his line of work. My band's drummer, John, is also a sound guy. For several years before we hooked up musically, he had been doing sound for other bands I was in, as well as for touring acts I booked shows for. He's very good at what he does, and has a pretty massive rig. Anyway, he's the nicest guy in the world at band practice, at Burger King, or at a gig we're playing. But when he's running sound for other bands, he can be pretty crabby. Very little patience for bands who start late or end late. Even less patience for bands who take an encore when they're the second band playing out of 5. Very little patience for singers who ask for more vocals in the monitor while cupping the microphone ball in both hands. Feedback, anyone? In general, just an altogether grouchy sound man. For example, he ran sound once for this 7 or 8 piece ska band. One of the trombone players said he needed 2 mics, one for his horn and one for his backup vocals. Normally, at this venue, a 120-seater, John didn't bother to mic horns at all. Rolling his eyes, John set up a Shure Beta 58 and some AKG condenser mic. "This Shure's for your vocals and this AKG's for your horn, okay?" he said. "Don't blow your horn into the vocal mic because your horn is about 30 decibels louder than your voice, and I'm gonna have everything properly mixed." Horn player nods his head. During the second song of the set, apparently the trombonist was set to get a solo. Right before his solo starts, he grabs both mics and pushes them close together so that the capsules are actually touching. He then blows this fortissimo opening note into both mics. I was sitting at a table in the back by the soundboard at the time. John's limiters caught most of it, and I still had ringing in my ears for 2 days. At the end of the song, John mutes both of the guys' mics and leaves them mute, and basically threatens to ream out the guy's plumbing with his own horn if he ever pulls that crap again. John does this through his talkback mic, which is clearly audible over the monitors. The crowd bursts into laughter, and the horn player goes bright red in the face. At any rate, for years, I had heard John threaten bands with the suck button. Bands who were taking too long to set up or whose members repeatedly focused to follow reasonable directions, please keep that vocal mic away from the monitors, for example, would be threatened. "Pull that crap again and I'm gonna hit the suck button on you guys." I took it to mean that he would intentionally make them sound bad, but he never followed through on the threat, so I took it as a vague general warning. So anyway, a little while back, he's running sound for a 4-band show. The second band, a Matchbox 20/Train kind of band, has him running 20 minutes behind before they they even play a note because their lead guitarist was late. Their allotted set time is 40 minutes, but their last song runs over, and by the time it's done, they've played for almost 45. John says quietly over the talkback mic, "Hey guys, you're done." The lead singer says loudly over the vocal mic, "Soundman says we gotta get off the stage. We got one more song for you," as they kick it into another soupy jangle rock tune. John shakes his head at me. Then the most amazing thing happened. After their encore, this band kicks straight into another song without announcing it, apparently in the hopes that John wouldn't notice it was a different song. John leads over to me to be heard over the PA and asks, "Hey, wanna see the suck button?" "Sure," I replied. I figured he was going to muck with the levels or just turn them off or something. Instead, he reaches to one of his racks and starts scrolling through patches on his dusty Digitech unit. Sure enough, he gets to a patch titled Suck Button. He engages it and all hell breaks loose. The lead singer and lead guitarist, who was singing backup, immediately start to sing way off key. They try to get back in tune, fail, trail off in mid-line, try again, and start glaring at each other. The guitarist is so distracted by this that he starts muffing the chord progression. If not for the drummer, I think the whole song would have derailed. For the entire 4-minute duration of the song, I was treated to this jerk band sounding like crap and getting madder and madder at each other. John explained the patch to me. Basically, it pitch shifts all the tracks from the vocal submix up by 1 step, but only in the monitors. So the audience out in front of the mains was treated to the sound of 2 guys trying to get in tune, only to be utterly confused. If they got it sounding right in the monitors, then they could tell something was grossly wrong in the mains. And each of the singers thought it was the other guy who was singing out of tune. I just about died laughing. Okay, I actually really love this story. This guy literally has a jerk button. I think this is something that we all need in life. Unfortunately, it wouldn't apply to all situations. But if only there was a way. Perhaps we all just need to take inspiration from this gentleman and learn to find what our own suck button is in life. Whatever profession you're in, see if you can develop a suck button to deal with the jerks that you have to deal with on a daily basis. If nothing else, maybe you'll have another Reddit post for me to read later on. Entitled parent I used to babysit for when I was 13 tries to get me to babysit again over a decade later. So there was a neighbor we had when I was in middle school and I used to babysit for her. She was a nice enough lady and she had an 8-year-old at the time. I would just go over to her house with him after school for a few hours for some extra money. She eventually got different hours at her job, I think. Maybe it was another reason, but either way, she didn't need me to babysit anymore after like 6 months or so. We moved about a year later and I haven't really thought about her since. I'm now almost 25. I have my own house and work a 9-to-5 job. I got on Facebook like 2 weeks ago. I don't have the app, I just check on my computer every once in a while. And I had a message from the woman I babysat for. Her message was basically, "It's been so long. How are you doing? You used to babysit my son years ago when you lived down the street. My son actually had his own baby earlier this year. I'd love for you to meet her. We could actually use someone to watch her Wednesday to Friday before my son and I get home from work. You were great with my son, so you were the first person I thought of." I was so confused by this message. I babysat her son for maybe 6 months over a decade ago, and she wants me to come and babysit her infant granddaughter now? I was the first person she thought of? I messaged her back and essentially said, "It's good to hear from you. That's great that blank had a daughter. She looks so cute in your picture. Unfortunately, I'm not interested in watching her. I'm sorry. I work until 5 and would be unable to anyways. But I hope you find someone." So it's been 2 weeks since this and I have gotten, no joke, 10 more messages from her begging me to babysit her granddaughter. I barely know these people and she will not stop asking me. She even asked me to change my work schedule so I'd be able to, offering me $10 an hour to watch her. I'm about to just block her, but I could not believe how strange this was and could not believe the request she was trying to make. How entitled can you get? I'm sorry, what? What is wrong with this lady? I'm just as confused reading this as our original poster is, I think. Like, nothing here adds up. Why is our original poster the first person you thought of? And when they said no, why are you being so persistent about it? You know there's services that you can hire, right? Or go to a family member or something? But this person's literally almost a stranger to you. And the person that you knew 10 years ago isn't going to be the person they are now. They're a full-grown adult. And to top it all off, $10 an hour? Come on. If I were the original poster though, I wouldn't block her, for the entertainment value alone. My entitled pastor brother-in-law gets all upset because I accidentally cursed in front of him. I'm a 27-year-old female and my husband is a 32-year-old male. We had his older brother, his wife, and his 5 kids over for dinner this weekend. My brother-in-law is a pastor at a pretty popular church in our city. Now, both myself and my husband are not very religious people by any means. We both work in the medical field. He's a cardiologist and I'm a nurse, so we've always had more scientific views on things. His side of the family is very religious though, so we always keep our views to ourselves to be respectful and go along with their religious things they do, I guess. For example, praying before eating. So for my brother-in-law and sister-in-law, one thing that they don't condone is cursing, which I'm aware of and respect when they're around. My husband and I recently bought a new house and my brother-in-law and sister-in-law have been bugging us to see it. We're pretty low contact with them as they're pretty over the top with their religious views and shame us for not having the same views. But we thought why not so we can see our nieces and nephews. Both my husband and I had this past weekend off work, so we planned a dinner with them and their kids. Everyone's at the table. Sister-in-law, my husband, and I are in the kitchen bringing the food over. I'm pulling one of the dishes I made out of the oven when I accidentally lose my grip and my hand hits the burning hot pan. My first reaction is yelling, "Ow, crap!" Except I didn't say crap. My sister-in-law gasps. My husband comes running over asking if I'm okay, and that I should have let him take that out. I grab some ice and head over to the table. My brother-in-law, who's sitting at the head of the table, is sitting there silently kind of shaking his head. Not even an "are you alright?" or anything. First thing he says to me is that cursing was very offensive to my family and I. You know we don't condone that. Are you going to apologize to me? I'm sitting there kind of in shock for a moment when my husband comes to my defense and starts explaining to brother-in-law that it wasn't intentional and that it was an in-the-moment reaction. He starts going off about how that's unacceptable and a person of his rank doesn't condone or want to be in the presence of vile words like that. So I say back to him, "I'm sorry, brother-in-law. Maybe if you weren't acting so holier than thou and got up and helped us in the kitchen, I wouldn't have cursed. And my hand's fine, by the way, thanks for asking." They leave shortly after dinner, and ever since then, my husband's side of the family has been bombarding us with texts about how we embarrassed brother-in-law and sister-in-law, sending us quotes from the Bible and articles about why cursing is unholy and things like that. My husband and I have honestly been getting a good laugh out of this and think that everyone is overreacting. I kind of feel bad though for my nieces and nephews, and feel like maybe I should have bitten my tongue. But I don't know. Am I the jerk? I'm sorry, you're asking if you're the jerk for having a completely normal reaction to being in sudden immense pain? No, you're not. I'm going to avoid getting into too much religious stuff here just to try and keep this as clean as possible for you guys. We don't need any controversy. Everyone's entitled to believe in whatever they want to believe in. But that goes both ways. You have to understand that other people don't live your way of life. And in that split moment, you need to understand that that's a perfectly normal reaction. Acting all high and mighty in the way you are isn't making you a better person. It doesn't put you above the person that you're putting down. They're in pain and you're being a complete jerk over a word. A simple sound that when it comes out of someone's mouth, people decided a few hundred years ago that it was offensive. Believe it or not, society changes. It evolves. Just because you've chosen not to doesn't mean you can expect the same from everyone else. Original poster, not a jerk. Brother-in-law, grade A jerk. Holy or not. When our parents died, my brother refused to look after me. Now years later, he needs help. Well, guess what, buddy? I'm a 24-year-old male, and my parents passed away when I was very young. I have 3 siblings, a sister and 2 brothers. All of them are much older than me. After my parents passed away, I wanted to live with either my sister or my second brother, but both of them made it very clear that they don't want me. I didn't want to go with my oldest brother because he's our half-brother, and I wasn't close to him and he lived in another city. away from all my friends and the rest of our family. But he was the only one who wanted me, so I went with him. Unlike what I thought, my oldest brother is actually awesome, and I have a very good life. I still live with him. My other siblings didn't even bother to call much. This was just some short background to catch you up. Recently, my second brother lost everything. I don't know or care about what happened. All I know is he's in a very bad spot. My sister left the country a few years ago, so my oldest brother is the only one who can help him. A few days ago, my oldest brother told us my brother and his family, wife and sons 11 and 17, want to move in with us for a while because they have no other option. His wife doesn't have a family. We live in a 5-bedroom house. My brother's room, my room, his daughter's room, his son's room, and our gaming room. So we have the space for them to move in. My brother said he doesn't want to force us to give up our space and wants us to figure out something that works for us. My nephew said he's fine with giving up the gaming room or sharing for a short time, but I said screw them. I'm not sharing or giving up anything for them. And my niece does what I say, so she's on my side. My brother said he's a bit disappointed, but won't force us to do anything. However, my second brother and his wife thinks we're being selfish jerks. Yeah, this one just really feels like a story of what goes around comes around. I mean, you can't really blame our original poster for feeling anything different. This brother essentially was ready to abandon him, and now, years later, he's in a situation where he can't look after himself and needs help. Honestly, I just feel like he's getting a taste of his own medicine here. Don't get me wrong, I hope they figure everything out, and it has been a long time since this initially happened, so I hope the second brother has grown into a more mature adult. But I understand how our original poster feels, and I'm not going to call them a jerk because of it. My family leaves me behind on a trip and is then surprised when I decide to do the same thing to them. When I was 15 or 16, my sister was invited to a medical study for a disability she has. As a part of this study, her and my parents traveled to DC 3 times over the course of a year. The first time I couldn't go because my parents couldn't afford to buy me a ticket on top of what the study was funding. They found out when they were there that they would have totally funded my ticket. So when the second trip was lining up with the week of my 16th birthday, I was super excited because I thought I could finally see DC. I wasn't able to afford my school's 8th grade trip, so the idea of a Sweet 16 in DC was the best thing in the world to me, especially as a kid who was really interested in politics. My parents didn't allow me to go on this trip because the week we would have been there would have conflicted with my first day of school. I have an early September birthday. I was completely devastated because not only were my DC dreams crushed, but I was also going to be alone for my 16th birthday. My best friend's parents ended up letting me stay with them for the week so that we could do something special for my birthday. I don't even remember why I couldn't go on the third trip. Probably something to do with school as well. They had a lot of time to sightsee and have fun, and it was a bummer to miss out on that with my family. I'm now 30 and I'm about to see DC for the first time as I'm interviewing for a job. It's the ideal job because it's half remote and half on site, and I'd be able to split my time between DC and New York City. My interview is on Tuesday, but I'm flying in tomorrow to have some extra days to really see everything I want to see, and also just to give myself time to relax before a high-stakes interview. I'm funding this extra trip with some inheritance money I received late last year. When my parents found out about this trip, they asked if I could use some of that inheritance to fly them out so we could finally do a family trip together. They said they could show me some of the places they know and what became their favorite parts of DC on their trips. While I do have enough money to cover it, I don't particularly want to. I want this to be my own special trip where I'm doing what I want to do and seeing what I want to see. I also want the time that weekend to relax and not have to go on a tour of all the places my family went to without me. I understand it's petty and that it's been a long time since all of that, but it still sort of hurts to think about even though it's not a huge deal in the grand scheme of things. I told them no, and they're making it out to seem like I'm rejecting them and acting in revenge for these past trips, which is actually not true. It has way more to do with the stress of the interview and wanting to protect my peace than it does for any idea of revenge. I feel fine in my decision, but my family has called me a spiteful jerk, so I'm here as a reality check for myself. Okay, so you understand that yes, it is maybe a little petty to be making this decision based off of those past experiences. But you know what? I think you're allowed to. Given what they did, it was a really jerk move on their part. And how they're feeling now is how you felt as a 16-year-old.
on your birthday. The reality check that's happening here is solely for them. They're getting a massive wake-up call as to how they made you feel as a teenager, that you felt excluded from the family. I feel like we've got another case of what goes around comes around. While this action may be a little bit entitled and petty and jerky, I feel our original poster is allowed in this instance. An eye for an eye, if you will, right?
My coworker won't stop hitting on me, so I help her husband win their divorce. Here's what happened. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell for notifications. I work in a small-scale accounting firm, about 150 employees. I get along well with pretty much all of my coworkers except 2 or 3. In this story, I'll introduce you to a female coworker of mine. Let's call her Jessica. Jessica is the office flirt, and while others don't mind, I very much do. My boyfriend and I have been together for 6 years, and frankly, I don't appreciate someone flirting with me to an excessive level and grabbing my butt and things like that. I don't know why she singled me out. Her advances are strongest towards me. I'm not above average attractiveness. If I were to rate myself on 1 to 10, I'd say a strong 6. The first time her advances came on too strong, I calmly rebuffed her, told her I was in a relationship and that I didn't appreciate it and things like that, and proceeded to tell HR. That way she couldn't say I was doing the harassing. For a few weeks, she left me alone. Then she cornered me in the break room. She was wearing a low-cut blue blouse that she was fond of that honestly was against company dress code. But she got away with it by teasing our boss. I can't remember her exact words, but it was something along the lines of, "I love men who play hard to get, but I'm getting impatient." She left shortly after. I went to HR again and reported the incident. My boss called me into his office later that day and we had a few words over the incident, and I was essentially laughed out of there. So when I went home for the day, I contacted my boyfriend's brother, a lawyer, and talked to him about my plan. A few days later, she came on to me again. Instead of going to HR, I walked into my boss's office and told him I planned to sue if nothing was done. I had the reports and the confirmation of my female coworkers as evidence, and Jessica was fired the next day. But I wasn't done. For the past 9 months, she'd been going through a nasty divorce. I had my significant other's brother contact her soon-to-be ex-husband's lawyer. Turns out, their divorce was because he suspected her of cheating. I volunteered as a character witness against her. My testimony ultimately led to her getting no alimony. He got majority custody of their son, and she had to move. I don't know where you are, Jessica, but if you're reading this, you deserved it, you jerk. I feel like this is the case a lot of the time, where if a man is being sexually harassed, it's really just laughed off, when in reality, they're being made to feel just as uncomfortable as their female coworkers are when they're sexually harassed. I'd like to think if someone came to their boss with an issue like this, that regardless of their gender, it would be handled appropriately. It shouldn't have to come down to the threat of a lawsuit before anything's done. You want me to waste the company's money buttering up the wrong people? If you insist. A number of years ago, I worked for a recruiting company that serviced a major automotive plant in the US. This was the first of its kind built in the US and had just recently opened. Now, typically for my company, a business manager / owner / administrator would give us hiring orders for new employees. Usually, it's someone in charge who decides to hire new people. With this company, the administration handed the hiring decision to the new hire trainers. Then those trainers would give us the order. I loved these trainers. They were deeply religious, family-oriented guys. Both of them adopted children from rough homes while I knew them. Both were extremely kind and welcoming to my new hires I was sending in, which can be rare in an automotive plant. They'd go on missions with their church to help in struggling areas. While I'm not religious at all myself, I loved how passionate these guys were, and how it reflected in working alongside them. The plant lowered production, and our orders for new hires slowed. My managers started getting on my butt. "Hey, go ask Bill and Ted if there are any new hires they need. Take them to dinner and see if you can talk them into more employees." I explained repeatedly to my boss that Bill and Ted don't make hiring decisions. Those decisions come way over their head and they just relay it. I was told I'm new to this business and don't understand how networking works. Finally, my boss's boss got on my butt when he was in the region for a meeting. I needed to push these guys to make new orders. So I checked my limits for how much I could spend schmoozing clients. And then I took these guys all around town for months. A new steakhouse opened that you guys want to try? Bring your wives, let's go. Do you guys want to hit the billiards club for lunch? The whole ticket's on me. Does the office want breakfast burritos and coffee delivered? Send your orders in and I'll bring it on my way. At some point, I figured there would be some backlash over the money I was spending. I even found the max I was allowed to tip and was maxing it out every time to give out more money to the waitresses. I was wrong. The plant cycled up again, and I think my managers believed those new orders came from the money I was spending, and not just typical ebbs and flows of auto manufacturing. Eventually, I left the company and these guys moved on to other jobs. We had a blast on the company dime while it lasted. I love when the boss thinks that they know how to do the job better than you, even when they've apparently never done it. Sure, maybe normally it would work that way, but as your employee was trying to tell you, this company works a little differently, and the guys that you're telling him to spend a massive amount of money on have nothing to do with the results that you're trying to get. But hey, no complaints as to the results on this one. Seems like some good folks got to enjoy some good food on the company dime. Can't say I blame them. Entitled lady decides to make racist remarks to the one person who could help her. I live in a German-speaking country, and we're known to be very strict about closing times and time limits at our government offices. I happened to witness this incident in one of these offices. I work as a sort of engineer, and went to an office which is dealing with formal requests regarding government-issued assignments. If you want to get such an assignment, you have to bring in paperwork in person up to a specific date. Because of the form and many things that happen in my industry, it's quite common to bring in the paperwork on the last possible day. It was close to closing time and I was waiting for someone when a woman entered the room, obviously in a rush, heading to the counter where paperwork has to be submitted. The counter was empty at the time. While she rushes across the waiting area, her paperwork slides out of her arms and falls onto the ground, spreading all over. As she's trying to put it all together, a man who looked Middle Eastern tried to help her, but when he touched her, she let out a shriek and told him to get back where he belongs and told him not to touch her paperwork. Obviously a racist remark telling him to go back to his own country of origin. A quite common statement here. Without a word, he gets up and steps behind the counter the woman was headed for. When she finally finished picking up her paper, she heads to the counter, realizing that he's there. Just as she reaches him, he puts up a sign saying closed and points to the clock which had just reached closing time. Her face went blank as she stammered to please make an exception, but she surely knew from the beginning that this was a pointless request. If she had let him help her, I'm sure she would have been able to put in the paperwork. I can just make an assumption that she either wasn't able to put in the paperwork at all, or at least had to come in again the next day. Surely not what her boss was expecting. How are you going to actually expect this man to help you after what you just said to him? That takes a lot of guts to even ask. I'm surprised she didn't just look up, see him behind the counter, turn around, and walk away. You know what the result's going to be. I sincerely hope that her not getting this paperwork in on time really screwed her over. Maybe she'll learn her lesson. Our entitled Karen neighbor thinks we won't call the cops on her because her husband's a cop. Well, guess what? In our mid-20s, my husband and I purchased and moved into our rather modest first house with our infant daughter. I made a big effort to meet and befriend our neighbors, and all of them warned me to be careful of one particular person, Jane. Jane had lived in the street for 3 years at this point, and had earned herself the nickname Big Fat Jane, as she was manipulating, intimidating, and thoroughly awful. Jane ran a daycare from her house, but neighbors on both sides reported hearing her scream at the children and leave them unsupervised in the garden. It's important to note that Jane's partner is a police officer. The neighbors were scared of retaliation if they reported her or stood up to her. It seemed Jane would use this to get away with her horrific behavior. Our house had a driveway with a dropped curb big enough for one car, but we could fit both if you blocked in the first and only used the second car. Parking on the street was very limited and we had double yellow lines outside our house, not allowed to stop or park there. During some essential roof work, our driveway was taken up by scaffolding and a skip, so we parked in the street, and my husband parked outside of Big Fat Jane's house. The next day, when he went to his car, Big Fat Jane came running down her path shouting at him. She screamed about his anti-social parking, that his car would be towed, and that he could expect it to be scratched up if he left it there any longer. My husband calmly explained it was a public road and she had no right to police the space. Her screeches at this point were loud enough that I and several of our neighbors heard, and came to see what the commotion was. Her partner was perched at the door during all of this, saying and doing nothing. When she saw me outside with our daughter, she pointed and screamed,
"You'll have the social on you if you don't screw off. I'll scratch you right up."
At this point, I told my husband to come back and we were calling the police. She responded,
"Call the police. I freaking dare you. He's a policeman. He'll freaking sort you out." You won't know what hit you.
At this point, my husband looked at her husband and said, "Is that right? And you're still agreeing with what she said?" The partner nodded and said, "You need to move or accept the consequences. You call the police, it won't get you anywhere." Funnily, when I took out my phone and dialed the non-police emergency number on speakerphone and made a police report, both of them looked a lot less confident. Big Fat Jane stood there open-mouthed, then grabbed her partner and slammed the door. We haven't heard from her since. Her partner was placed on suspension due to the allegation, and further allegations from our neighbors. He then returned to an admin role. After our confrontation, Big Fat Jane was given a warning for a public order offense. However, due to a number of reports, her daycare closed and she's no longer able to mind children. Their house is up for sale. However, because she made a number of modifications without proper planning or works people, its price is significantly lower than they expected. And they're in negative equity, all because of a parking space. Some jerks just don't know when to not pick a fight. I'd honestly like to know why it bothered her so much that he was parked there. Is it just because it's in front of your house? He's not hurting anyone by being parked there. It's not causing you any inconvenience if he's not blocking your driveway. And surely after a brief explanation, you'd understand that they can't use their own driveway. They have nowhere else to park. You're just being a jerk for the sake of being a jerk. And the disgusting part is that she thinks she can get away with it because she has a cop for a husband. Honestly, it bothers me that he got his job back at all. But hey, at least there was some justice done and she's leaving the neighborhood so no one else has to deal with her anymore. My now ex-friend has been cut out of our friends group for not believing me about my service dog. I just want to start by saying I'm pretty sure I'm not the jerk, but my friend and her family are pretty certain that I am. I'm a 24-year-old female with epilepsy. I have a service dog who's fully certified, who's trained to help me with my seizures. I've been diagnosed since a child, and I've had my current dog Bailey for 4 years now, and she's the bestest girl around. Before Bailey, I had a previous service dog who we had to retire due to old age. But having a service animal is by no means new for me. With her being a service dog, she's obviously always with me. I have a core friend group who hangs out quite often. My one friend, let's call her Anna, also 24-year-old female, always makes really weird and almost passive-aggressive comments about me and Bailey. For example, dogs shouldn't come to restaurants. I'm inconveniencing people, and things like that. She doesn't get that I legitimately need her for my own safety. It's not just for show. My seizures are really regular. For context, I actually get 2 different kinds. My small ones are petite mal seizures. This essentially just looks like I'm zoning out and staring into space. Quite often, people who don't know me wouldn't even connect this. My big ones are my main concern. These are focal seizures, where I lose consciousness. This can happen a couple times a day for me, so it's obviously really important that I manage it to the best of my abilities. Anyways, our friend Anna wanted to host a games night type thing at her house. When we were there, she lost it on me. She told me it was incredibly disrespectful that I showed up with Bailey without asking for permission first. That I can't just assume people will be happy with a dog always being around. That I should have just stayed home if I couldn't handle being out for a few hours without Bailey. I tried apologizing and pointing out that I assumed she knew I was bringing her since I've never gone anywhere without her. That set her off even more. The guys were finally able to calm her down, but her compromise was I had to put Bailey in the backyard. I was an idiot and said fine, because I didn't want to inconvenience anyone more or continue stirring the pot. Bailey went outside and I returned inside with my friends. I ended up having a seizure, blacking out and smashing my head on the floor. I had to go to the hospital because of how hard I hit my head. I guess my friend group really gave it to Anna, calling her hateful, toxic, and a jealous witch. I guess she was trying to say that I passed out for the attention and I got my way like always. Long story short, no one wants her around anymore. Since this happened, her sister, and mom have been blowing up my phone, calling me the jerk and demanding I fix this situation. And it's honestly getting to me. So, am I the jerk? I don't understand how anyone could view our original poster as the jerk in this situation. They have a medical condition. There's a reason they've been assigned a service dog that they have with them all the time. Putting our poster in danger because you think they're faking it or making it up for attention or something like that is incredibly short-sighted. Regardless of what you think, are you really willing to take that chance? Medically certified doctors have said that she has this condition. What makes you, some suburban stuck-up jerk, more qualified to make that decision than a doctor? And all this based on sight alone? No, I think it's very clear who's the jerk in this instance. My mother-in-law's obsession with my son has gotten out of hand. I have a 4-year-old and I'm due with baby number 2 mid-year. My husband, 27, and I, 25, have been together since we were teens. My mother-in-law, 47, was jealous from the get-go of our relationship. I've read up a bit on this, and apparently it's to do with her not having her emotional needs met by a partner, so they subconsciously use their son to meet those needs. Then, when I fell pregnant with my now 4-year-old, she kept saying my baby, and sometimes would let slip and start referring to my husband as our child's brother. This continued my whole pregnancy, and she would boast about it to anyone and everyone. Then he was born, and it was all amplified. She wanted to take him to spend alone time with him from the time he was a couple weeks old, and would be offended when we said no. She would always say that grandma loves him more than his parents do. She would kick up a giant stink whenever she wasn't able to take him out alone. She never wanted to spend time with him around us. There were so many times where we tried to set boundaries, but she would always do it her way and guilt trip us. When we would do things together, she would physically push the pram out of my hands, and she would push the pram everywhere anytime we were together. She'd always say, "I'll push my baby," and I was never allowed. She would never correct people if they assumed she was his mother. And as his parents, we thought that was too weird. He's always her grandson, but never ever is he our son. Anytime we do anything, it's always about her. It's like she's now using my son to meet her emotional needs, which, even though it's subconscious, to me, it's sick. I've tried to place more boundaries, but always get met with guilt trips. When we go places together where my son will experience what I call firsts, all of those things are taken over by her. Even just small details like going to buy a drink. She needs to take him instead of us. She either takes him and does them without us, or I'll say, hey, maybe he could do that with his parents too. And she'll be unhappy in making sure he holds on to her hand, and he's sitting next to her and not us. She always makes sure if he comes over to me that she gets his attention back onto her. She constantly tells him she loves him the most. He's her favorite. He's her favorite person. Anytime we do anything together, to make her the center of his attention. Now that I'm having another baby, also a boy, I've been worried it'll be the same thing all over again. But it's not. I caught her telling my son,
"Don't worry, you'll always be grandma's favorite. You're grandma's boy. You won't have to share. I'll always be your favorite person."
And that's just horrible. She's saying things like,
"You and grandma can do things together and mom and dad can have the new baby."
am I the jerk for thinking that this is just absurd behavior? No, definitely not the jerk. You're probably onto something with her need for an emotional attachment. She's taking loving and doting grandma to a whole new level, to a point where it's actually becoming a problem. And the fact that she's so willing to disregard the new baby that's coming shows that it's not really about being a grandma. She seems to need the love from this child. Now, I'm assuming that she had the same emotional attachment with her own son. Like our poster said, she had a very hard time letting him go. And now she sees an opportunity to replace that. It's very clear how much she values this relationship, which means that she should be able to take a step back and understand that that's what she's taking away from our poster. She's taking away that bonding with her son. It's just an incredibly jerk move, no matter what way you look at it. Our poster says that talks have happened and unfortunately to no result. So I don't really know what the next step is for you here. I guess you're gonna have to lay down an ultimatum, and your mother-in-law is gonna have to make the choice. I'm refusing to attend my brother's wedding because of the dress code. My brother is getting married in a few months, and his future wife recently asked me to be part of her bridal party. I was thrilled and excited to be included, but then she informed me that the dress code for the bridal party was gender specific, with women expected to wear dresses and men expected to wear suits. As someone who identifies as non-binary and is more masculine presenting, I'm uncomfortable with conforming to a gender binary that doesn't accurately represent me. I brought this up with my brother and his fiance, but they insisted that they wanted all their guests to adhere to the dress code, regardless of how it made them feel. I ultimately decided that I didn't want to attend the wedding. as I didn't feel comfortable being pressured to conform to a gender binary that doesn't accurately represent me. My brother and his fiance are now upset at me, accusing me of being difficult and not willing to compromise. After a fight with them, I found out they went behind my back and involved my mom. She called me yesterday and told me to put aside my identity for one day to make the day special for my little brother. I now feel bad and didn't realize something as small as the clothes I feel comfortable wearing would cause a rift within my family. So, am I the jerk for refusing to go to the wedding? This one's a little tough for me to comment on. This is a situation where it's just hard for me to see it from our original poster's point of view. The best I can do to compare is say, well, what if someone asked me to wear a dress to a wedding? I probably wouldn't feel comfortable with it either. So in that sense, I totally get where our original poster is coming from. It also does kind of seem like this rule may have been made specifically targeted at our poster. It's not typically something you normally state outright that men will wear suits and women will wear dresses, unless you're expecting something different. Though I would like to think that you would want your sister to be at your wedding, whether she's wearing a suit or not. It shouldn't matter more than it does that they be there. I don't know. Like I said, this one's hard for me to comment on. I'm curious to hear what you guys have to say in the comments. My homophobic father demands a male nurse and gets a flamboyant male nurse for his surgery instead. Here's what happened. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell for notifications. This took place in the 70s, in a much different time. My father was an ex-military, macho, 6'4" police officer in California when I was a kid. He was also a sexist homophobe who would yell at the TV about gender bender movies and gays taking over the world. I cannot stress to you enough how much he hated gay people. He had to have emergency surgery on his gallbladder. At this time, this was a much more involved process than it is today. The rest of this story was told to me by my mom because I had to wait outside with my grandma when this happened. They had to put a catheter in right before the process, and my father was uncomfortable having a female nurse do it. So he requested a male nurse. A few moments later, the most flamboyant gay nurse, or at least he was putting on a show to make my father uncomfortable, burst into the room and in a loud voice announces, "So, you want a male nurse, do you? Well, I can fix you up." My mom said the look on my father's face was pure horror, but he was in utter shock and allowed the nurse to put in the tube. He never spoke of it, but my mom would laugh about it even years later. On a side note, my oldest daughter came out as gay, but as you can imagine, didn't want to tell her grandpa for years. It finally came to the point where she was comfortable and he rejected her, and I basically told him he was out of my life. He came by in tears and apologized to her for all the negative things he'd said over the years. He completely changed who he was after, and is now a part of my life again. He continues to make an effort to be a better person even to this day. It is sad that it took losing his family to change him, but change he did, and for the better. Sometimes jerks can learn. I really like this story overall. Our jerk in this story got put in a really uncomfortable situation for his personal preference, and it's quite funny as a result. Also, he did make the change later on. As our original poster said, it was a different time. Not that that's any excuse for treating people differently, but he's learned his lesson and has seen the error of his ways. At the end of the day, that's all we can really ask for, right? My manager docked me a half a day's pay for leaving 15 minutes early to see my dying father-in-law. In my last job, when I started, I would log in as soon as I got there, and if I had anything to finish, I would do it before I left. I didn't mind as I'm a team player. This resulted in me doing 20 to 30 minutes a day unpaid, but I liked the company and liked a clear desk. Fast forward 2 years and my father-in-law was terminally ill. We got a call from the hospital telling us we had to get there ASAP, as he didn't have long left. I told my manager and left at 3:45. Core hours were 10 to 4. The next month, my pay was docked for half a day. I had already made 2 hours extra unpaid that week, but they told me they couldn't make exceptions and the extra I did was my own decision. Alrighty then. I came in on the dot and left on the dot. I did this for 5 years. I worked to the letter of my contracted hours. My manager was talking to a new starter and in my earshot, she told him she hated clock watchers who left on the dot, as this doesn't show company loyalty. I leaned over and replied, loyalty works both ways, and being docked half a day's pay for attending the deathbed of a beloved family member when I'd already done more than my weekly hours was cruel and unfeeling. So I showed the company the same level of compassion they showed me. After all, rules are rules, and exceptions cannot be made. The new starter started on the dot and left on the dot, as did the whole staff. I dread to think how many extra hours they lost over the whole department over the next few years. But hey, the jerks brought it on themselves. Yeah, I feel like our original poster said it best here. Loyalty works both ways. If you want your employees to work hard and take care of your company, you need to work hard and take care of your employees. Cutting a half-day pay for them to go see a family member in the hospital is a very low blow, especially when they only left 15 minutes early and have a habit of working extra anyway. You're talking about how you don't like clock watchers, but you're penny pinching on your side. You saw an opportunity to save some money and you took it, despite the human factor. And that's really just a gross move. It shows a complete lack of caring for your employee. So you can't be surprised when your employee turns around and stops caring about the company. Management makes a new rule that all tattoos must be covered. Well, if you insist. I worked in a nursing home about 10 years ago as a resident nurse on night shift. I had 2 small upper forearm tattoos that were just text upon hire, but usually wore a jacket to cover them. Was never an issue if I had my jacket off. It always struck up a conversation about my ink and the meaning behind it. One day, the director of nursing announced that all tattoos must be covered at all times, as to not offend the residents or visitors. Okay, I worked at night with patients who had some memory issues, so sure. Whatever, don't want to offend anyone. So towards the end of my shift, I remembered the new rule. Management would be in soon. I took 2 large pieces of silk tape and covered my tattoos to prove the point. Management, noticing the tape on each forearm, "Original poster, what happened to your arms?" "Oh, well, you guys made that new rule that all tattoos must be covered. So I covered mine." "Oh, I didn't know you had tattoos." My point exactly. You noticed the tape, yet never noticed my ink. Soon after, the rule was thrown out. I feel like this one kind of relates to our previous story and just that it's a different time now. Tattoos are generally accepted. Lots of people have them, and they can mean a wide variety of things. There's no reason to get offended just because someone has a tattoo. It's kind of a stupid way of thinking. My company tried to hold me accountable for a 5-cent overage on an expense. This one happened a few years ago when I worked in corporate for a large sub-chain that has currently seen better days. They had purchased a taco concept, and part of my job consisted of going around the country to help open up these new restaurants. Now, this sub-chain is not known for corporate luxuries, so I didn't bat an eye at the daily food expense allowance when traveling, which was $42 per day broken out by meal. Breakfast, $8. Lunch, $14. Dinner, $20. So you couldn't even skimp on breakfast and lunch to get yourself an alright meal. But okay, I usually stayed in hotels that had a complimentary breakfast buffet, and I often skipped lunch and worked straight through the day. So my expenses were regularly less than $20 per day. Now comes the problem. When during one of these trips, my dinner came out to be $20.05. Before a cash tip, mind you, that I paid out of my own pocket and didn't expense. I didn't think much of it because, hey, it's a nickel, and I didn't go over my daily spending allotment. Cut to the end of the month after submitting my expense report, I get a call from accounting that went like this.
"I'm looking at your July expenses. How did you want to handle this?"
I did handle it. I submitted.
"No, you went over on one of your dinners. Would you like to send payment in or have it taken from your payroll?"
I'm sorry, what total are we talking about?
"You spent $20.05 on dinner XYZ, which is a 5-cent overage."
Okay, so I owe 5 cents?
"Yes."
You can take that out of my payroll, but please do it over the next 5 pay periods. I'd like to split up the payments for budgeting purposes.
"Are you serious?"
Are you? Following her true nature, she took a penny out of the next 5 checks, and I made a point of spending as close to $42 a day as humanly possible for every other trip I ever took with that company. What is it with the corporate penny pinchers today? Corporate never understands how their employees give so much immeasurable effort to the job. Yet they can measure something like this, being 5 cents, that you owe them. And you best believe they're gonna collect. It's really disgusting behavior. And you know that decisions to follow up on stuff like this comes from the higher-ups who are already probably making 6 figures a year. Just get a life. My sister told our parents the real reason she doesn't want to have kids, and now they're coming after me for it. I always knew I didn't want to have kids. I don't have any specific reason for not wanting children, I just lack the desire, and I strongly believe that the question should be, why do you want kids, instead of why don't you want kids? My older sister, Sadie, was very vocal about wanting to have children in her early 20s, but now that she's in her late 20s, she's changed her mind. Our parents never liked that I don't want kids, but they didn't care much about it either, since they knew Sadie will give them grandchildren. But now that Sadie changed her mind, they're panicking. They invited us both over to dinner, then confronted us on why we don't want to have children, and demanded a reason. I told them I just simply lack the desire, and I expected Sadie to do the same. But instead, she threw me under the bus. She decided to perpetuate the child-free stereotype and said that she's too lazy and selfish to have children. She doesn't want to start her mornings with making breakfast, getting the kids ready, and taking them to school. She's just too lazy for that and doesn't want to give up her nice vacations and hobbies. Thanks to her, now our parents are bugging me too, and believe I'm a selfish, lazy person. I told Sadie she was wrong for telling our parents that's her reason, and she should have thought about me before opening her mouth. Sadie said she has every right to tell our parents whatever she wants, and it's not her fault that they are the way they are, and that I can't stand up for myself. Am I the jerk here? I have to say, I feel like I kind of agree with Sadie here. She's entitled to say whatever she wants to her parents. If that's her reason and she wants to be perfectly honest with them and tell them that, then that's fine. It's your parents that are being the jerks by coming after you about this, and assuming that your reasons are the same. You do need to stand up for yourself. Face your parents and try to get them to understand that your reasoning is different. Also, having children just because your parents want you to isn't a good reason either. So them sitting down and asking, why don't you want children? The turnaround would be, well, if we do have children, it's only because you want us to, which isn't a good reason either. Unfortunately, you guys are just aimed at each other right now, instead of directing this at your parents, who are the ones that need to be addressed. My financially irresponsible aunt is insisting that I share the inheritance I got from my mother with her. I, 25-year-old female, recently lost my mother to cancer. Me and my brother, 35-year-old male, are her only children. For the past 7 years, I've been staying in an apartment my mother bought. She always told me that when she died, she wanted me to have it because she worked so hard to ensure I always had somewhere to live. So when she died, she left me the apartment in the will. My brother has no issue with this. He makes more than enough of his own money, and actually owns an apartment in the same building. However, my aunts, A and B, have an issue with this. A has had money issues for as long as I've known her, and my mother was always helping her out with money when she was alive. B is financially stable, but in no position to help A. They both think that since I make enough money to be able to rent a place, I should let A stay in the apartment and rent my own, because that's what my mother would have wanted. I said no, stating that my mother wanted me to have a place of my own. I'm currently saving all the money I would have used on rent and intend to buy my own house when I have enough saved. When I said no, they then suggested that I should share some of the money my mother left me with them. She had 2 life insurance policies, both of which went only to my brother and I. She also left us the house and her car. Basically, everything was split between my brother and I, and no one else got anything. My aunt feels that this was wrong, and that they, especially A, deserve some of the money. My brother blocked them on all platforms when they asked this of him, and suggests I do the same. But I feel guilty about cutting off my family. But I also feel strongly that if my mother wanted them to get money, she would have left them something. But she didn't. She chose to leave everything to my brother and I. My aunts are saying that my mother did that because she assumed we would share. But I knew my mother. She would have told me if she wanted me to do that. All she said was that she wanted to die knowing that me and my brother would be able to support ourselves. So am I the jerk for not giving money to A or allowing A to stay in my apartment? I always hate hearing stories like this. Someone dies and everyone starts fighting over the money left behind. The whole point of the will is for it to lay out what that person wants done after they die. They chose to leave everything to their children. I'm sorry to your aunts, but it seems like your mother wanted to make sure that you guys were taken care of first and foremost. and no one can really blame her for putting her children first. It sounds like she supported Aunt A through a good portion of her life, and maybe she's felt that she's done enough in that department, and it's more important to make sure that her own kids are taken care of. It really sucks that you guys have to have this issue, but yeah, if this is what it's going to come to, maybe you need to cut them out. The fact that they're being so insistent on the money is kind of gross. I told my mom I don't have to be loyal to my stepsister just because I am to my sister. My mom married Jason 2 years ago. My sister and stepsister were both 13-year-old females and I was a 14-year-old male. Dad went MIA when my sister and I were babies. Mom's had a few relationships since then, but Jason is the first husband she's had. Jason's daughter is Riley. Riley's mom abandoned her when she was a baby too. Her mom died at some point, but she only found out in November. She'd never met her mom, but it was hard on her. Ever since Riley found out her mom was dead, my mom has been trying to get her more friends in school. She has friends outside of school, but none actually in school. She wanted my sister to invite Riley into her friendship group, and my sister said no. Riley and my sister do not like each other. From the first time we met her, the two of them have had their issues. It bothers Mom that my sister won't let it drop. It started to get seriously tense between my mom and my sister, mostly because my sister was hanging out with her friends one day and my mom asked them if Riley could join. This was outside of school, and my sister's friends said no since Riley isn't their friend, and because my sister doesn't like her. Mom said my sister didn't mind. My sister said she did mind, and would rather stay alone in her room than hang out with Riley. Mom told her she was turning into a real bully, and Riley was her sister and she should be trying to help her through her difficult time. My sister told Mom they didn't like each other and didn't care about each other, so why would either of them want to help the other? When my sister and I still hung out together after that incident, Mom pulled me up and said I should be blasting my sister and including Riley more, that I should be showing Riley that loyalty I show to my sister. I laughed and asked her why she thought I had loyalty for Riley. Mom said, of course I do, because we're family and she's my younger sister now, and how could I not be loyal to her? And that I've always been loyal to my sister. I told Mom because my sister and I are siblings, close siblings, as well as friends, and I love her, and that I don't have to be loyal to Riley just because I'm loyal to my sister. I told her Riley might be like a daughter to her now, but she's not like a sister to me. She told me I was saying horrible things and I should be better than this. I told her to ask Riley if she's an only child or has siblings. Mom said Riley would of course answer that she has siblings. Newsflash, she doesn't. But Mom and Jason like to ignore this and act like Riley was so desperate to be siblings with us. Mom told me I should be loyal to both sisters, but especially to the one who needs me most right now, Riley in her eyes. She told me I was not being a good big brother and I should be ashamed of myself for dismissing Riley the way I do. Am I the jerk? When it comes down to it, you can't make them like each other. That's something that they need to decide to do on their own. I'm sure it's hard just having to accept someone as family immediately, especially when there seems to be tension there. I want to say for the perfect happy ending, give it a shot and try and make something happen to improve the relationship. But at the same time, I understand if you don't want to do that. I feel like it's just kind of a tough situation for everyone involved. I called out my husband's brother for being the lying jerk that he is. My husband's older brother Tom is married to Valerie. Valerie has an 8-year-old daughter who Tom adopted last year. Valerie and Tom are expecting another baby together. Their daughter had suggestions for names for her baby brother or sister, namely names that were nature themed: Wren, Dove, Lark, River, Hawthorn, Forest, Cove, Ocean. My name was actually among ones she suggested. My own brother has a bird name along with me. Tom proceeded to tell their daughter that those weren't real names, and that I had always disliked and hated my name, and that they didn't want their little baby to be the same. He said this in front of me and my husband. My husband thought he was crazy and told him I never said that. Tom glared at my husband. Then his daughter asked me if I hated my name and I said I didn't. Valerie said it didn't really matter what I thought, but they didn't want their kid to have a weird name, and she told their daughter they wanted the baby to have a lovely name like she has. Their daughter said she liked my name better and didn't think her name was nice. My husband and Tom's parents were like, let's not insult other people's names when Tom and Valerie started to protest, and reminded them that they were in the presence of someone with one of the so so-called ridiculous names. Fast forward on a couple of hours, and Tom came over and told me I needed to tell his daughter that names like mine don't work on people, and that I want her to stop wanting a sibling called that and start embracing her name and the name they will give her future sibling. He told me just because I wanted to live like a freak with a weird name didn't mean he wanted that for his kids. I told him he was a lying jerk for putting words in my mouth and expecting me to do the same. I told him nobody said he needed to like my name, but to insult it, to insult me, and then ask me to lie for him was unbelievable. I told him I didn't need to lie for him, and wouldn't, and to get out of my face. My husband and I left almost immediately after, apologizing for abruptly leaving to my in-laws and our niece. Tom called my husband after and said his daughter could have heard, and I was a jerk for saying what I did to him when she was in the house. My husband disagrees, but I do wonder if I went too far. Am I the jerk? This feels like one of those overreacting parent situations. Your kid likes unconventional nature-themed names. There's nothing wrong with that. I understand it might be a little difficult to have this conversation with your child and disappoint them that that's not a name that you're gonna go for, just because it's not something that you like. But to insult someone and call them a freak when they have nothing to do with this situation is just a straight-up jerk move. She didn't ask to be dragged into this. It's not her fault that your daughter likes her name. You're the one that needs to figure out how to disappoint your daughter. Don't turn around and blame someone who didn't ask to be involved in this situation at all. My boss says only smokers get breaks at work, so I became a smoker. Here's what happened. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell for notifications. So I wanted to talk about the problem of people taking smoke breaks during the workday. Basically, at my job, on average, the smokers take about 5 to 10 minutes or 5 to 15 minute smoke breaks, all paid since they don't clock out. The non-smokers, which are surprisingly in the minority, 7 out of the 25, including me, asked to take a break when the smokers do. The manager says that they're only for smokers, and if everyone went on them, then there would be too much of a lack in productivity and we would fall behind. As anyone can realize, that's total BS. So I went online to Amazon and bought all of the non-smokers herbal smokes that are tobacco, nicotine, and additive free. Basically, just a cigarette filled with tea leaves. And we started going on smoke breaks, but hanging out in our own corner to avoid the second hand. The manager comes out and starts yelling, asking what we're doing, and that he thought we didn't smoke and we should be working. To which we kindly pointed out that we had all decided to start smoking, and that, well, we were smoking along with everyone else there. This lasted 4 days before the manager set limits to how many and how long smoke breaks are, and started to let the non-smokers take the same breaks too. Also, I'm not sure about the health effects of herbal smokes, but considering we just lit the ends on fire then stood around the wall like some guys outside a club from the 80s, I think we were fine. It does seem only fair that the non-smokers should get small paid breaks as well. 5 to 10 minutes isn't a big thing, and it can really help you reset your internal clock and come back with a little more productivity. And if your argument is you can't have everyone going at once, then yeah, you just cycle how many people are going at a time. It feels like this was a really easy solution that could have been avoided by management. My company got bought out and they fired everyone, but they did it before they changed a few key things. I had worked at a small-end rural internet company for nearly 6 years. It was family-owned and they paid us all really well for the work that we did. Barely anyone ever left the company. In my position, I was head of sales and I controlled all software that was associated to clients. This had everything in it, including billing addresses, service addresses, and leads for new clients. It was an outdated program for sure, but it got the job done and it worked for us. Fast forward time and we're still doing our regular jobs, when there was an unscheduled meeting thrown at us. We walked in and there were several new faces sitting on the other end of the table. They announced that they had sold the company to XYZ. XYZ seemed like an okay place to continue working because they too were local and the team seemed nice. I was told everything is business as usual and to not do anything different. The transition took place and every so often, someone from the new company would come to me and ask how we would do things and get a better feel for it. I could tell they were trying to weed us out, so I went balls to the wall with renewals on old accounts. They announced to me that I needed to go to the HR department around closing time. Having anticipated this, I saved all of my commission files and emailed them to myself. I went to the office and they laid me off on the spot because they do not pay commission to their staff. I said okay, and that I plan on them still paying me commission for the time I was there, as they had not discussed anything pay related with me yet. She said again, we do not pay commission. I emailed my commission statement to the manager I was working with and basically was told the same thing. Fast forward to the next week when they realized they no longer had the credentials to get into our system, and they called to ask for the information. I let them know that I would be happy to do that when I come up there to get my check for commission. I didn't hear anything the next day, and then I get a call that my commission check is in the office. I went up there, grabbed the biggest commission check I had ever made, and gave them the credentials. Never tell someone business as usual when you do not intend on things being business as usual. Yeah, I feel like this is a classic IT thing, right? Where the IT guy gets let go, but he was the only one with the answers to the problems they're having, and all of a sudden they need him back. In this case, we had an employee who was being denied their commission check. And I understand with the new company that this is the way they work and that they don't pay commission. But you had not reworked anyone's pay at that point. You had taken over the company and said it will continue as usual. That means that you will pay them as usual. Now you're firing them because you don't want to have to pay commission. Okay, that's fine. But you still have to pay out what they had worked for. I feel like there would be a legal obligation there. If there's any lawyers in the house, let me know in the comments below on this one. Our wedding photographer got really sketchy after we left him a 3-star review. So this all still doesn't feel real. I had a full panic attack over it and I'm still freaking out. We hired a photographer for our engagement and wedding photos. And after we got our engagement photos, realized he wasn't a good fit. We didn't like the photos, he was cagey and uncomfortable, and frequently missed meetings. He said he wouldn't give us any refund for the wedding portion of the deposit. Close to $3,000, despite it being over a year away and us offering to help transfer our date to a new couple. He was honestly pretty aggressive with me specifically, despite both me and my fiance talking to him. We agreed that we could move forward with him and look at possible solutions. A month later, he emailed saying he had found another couple for our date and wanted to know if we wanted to cancel. We asked if he'd refund us and he still said no, despite the new client. Finally, he agreed to give back a few hundred. We left some reviews about our mixed experience, left 3 out of 5 stars. We're exceedingly kind about all the parts that he did well, nice lighting and things like that. But we're honest about his lack of communication and him asking to hire a new client without refunding us. A few minutes later, I get harassing emails and texts demanding I take down the reviews, claiming I'm ruining his family and things like that. We told him the reviews were honest, and if he felt we'd been unfair, we would edit the reviews. No response. 30 minutes later, we're in a random town getting lunch, 2 hours from where we live, 3 states from where he is. I hear him call my name. He's somehow in this random town and runs down me and my fiance. He starts threatening us, saying we had no right to leave the contract. Not true. He left, and also we can leave up to 120 days from the wedding. He threatens to sue and starts yelling in the middle of a crowded plaza. I'm honestly very afraid at this point and just keep trying to escape and walk away. He gets in his car and follows us, saying we'll hear from his lawyers. I felt like I was living in a fever dream. He has no legal grounds, but that was still wild. I always felt he had bad vibes. If you get bad vibes from a wedding vendor, run away. Yeah, that's one heck of a sketchy situation. It's hard to know how to react in a moment like that. A review is supposed to be something that's, impersonal. And when someone comes to your face and wants to hold you accountable for it, it can get really awkward. And in this case, potentially dangerous. If this guy was just a little more unstable, who knows? It could have gotten violent. As it is, he seems like he managed to contain himself from that at least. I do understand how a bad review can affect a small business, but that's why it's on you to give the best service you possibly can. If you don't want a bad review, don't give them any reason to give you one. When you conduct your business the way you did, you're bound to get something like this eventually. It sounds like it was just an honest review, not a bad one. Taking it to this next level is just excessive. Entitled mother gets upset that I won't let her brats put their hands in my food. My husband and I went out for a quiet dinner on Saturday night. We were sitting at our table when 2 women with 3 kids sat at a table near us. 2 of the kids, boys, looked around 4 or 5, while the older girl looked around 12. and was in her phone most of the time. The other two soon started running rampant in the restaurant, while their mothers sipped cocktails unbothered. One of the boys approaches our table with his hands out, and I can tell he's gonna try and touch my food. I lift up my plate and say, "No, please don't touch it." The kid just laughs at me and leaves to run another lap of the room. I see his mothers watch this happening, but pretending to not be aware. My husband is not looking too pleased at this point because he predicts a repeat. And that's exactly what happens. The kid tries his food and he does the same as I did. The kid then turns to my plate again, and this time I swatted his hand away, lightly, and not at all forcefully. The kid starts crying because I wouldn't let him touch my food. Suddenly, the entitled mother is all concerned.
That was so mean. He's not doing anything wrong.
Excuse me, but I don't want anyone else's hands in my food.
He's just a kid. It's not a big deal.
He's not mine, thank you, so I'm not interested in having him touch my food. Please mind your children. At this point, she's about to say something more, but the server tactfully brought their food and engaged them in conversation. Entitled mother and the other lady kept looking daggers at us all night long. Whatever, you jerks. Yeah, people really do need to learn to mind their kids in a public situation. Yes, they're kids. Yes, they're gonna be a little rowdy. But guess what? You're parents. It's your job to try and contain that. And not let your children just run around being a nuisance to everyone else around you. I don't understand how you can sit there almost completely ignoring what's happening and not feel any responsibility. Step up as a parent. I straight up told my sister that she's the reason our parents are divorcing. I'm a 24-year-old male. About a month ago, my parents, 55-year-old female and 57-year-old male, announced they were getting a divorce. This has been quite a shock to most people as they seem to not be having any issues out of the ordinary. However, I have been the one privy to the information of why they're divorcing. It's because of my sister Anne, 26-year-old female. Anne is a deadbeat. She's never worked more than 14 hours a week since getting expelled from college for multiple acts of cheating and code of conduct violations. 5 years ago. All she does is sit at home most days watching TV or going over to her loser boyfriend's house to get high. She feels no need to support herself and expects my parents to carry her through life. She's been in therapy since she was 14, but can't keep one for more than a year because she gets dropped as a client due to her lying and inability to show up to appointments. My parents have spent over a decade trying to get some mental issue pinned down for Anne, and all they've gotten is that she's just a lazy narcissist. Last year, my mom decided enough was enough and planned to kick Anne to the curb and wash her hands of her. Dad disagreed, and in the end, the two's marriage got torn apart. I know because both of them have come to me basically admitting that if Anne was not a factor, divorce would not even be a consideration. I don't get along with Anne for a variety of reasons. She's always been a bully and owes me a large sum of money at the moment. The thing that boils my blood though is that she's oblivious to the situation between our parents, or just doesn't care. She had a literal tantrum when the possibility of the house being sold came up, because she doesn't want to have to move into an apartment with my dad. Last night, I found myself at my parents' house and had the misfortune of talking to Anne. Anne mentioned that she's getting really sick of my mom's melodramatic crap and not just leaving the house to her and my dad. Something struck me at that moment, and I just asked Anne if she really doesn't care that she's such a selfish, garbage, waste of space human that she's driven her parents to get a divorce. I elaborated and told her the full truth, that she is in fact the only reason they're getting a divorce, because moms finally realized that there's no hope Anne will ever grow up. The resulting storm this caused was massive. Anne acted as if I sold her out to the Romans, and my parents argued between "she deserves to know" and "we told you that in confidence." Because Anne can't keep her mouth shut either, the entire extended family has begun to hear about it too. I wanted to know before opinions start forming outside the inner circle if I'm the jerk here. I'm not gonna call you a jerk, honestly. It sounds like this has been a long time coming, and someone needed to give her a little tough love. It seems like your parents let this get so far that they're ready to divorce over this, rather than just having the conversation with Anne that she needs to get herself together. I feel like you stepping in and saying it for them maybe could have a large impact on this. And as for the rest of the family thinking you're a jerk, I wouldn't worry about it too much. Who would be the jerk? The one whose obliviousness and refusal to grow up is causing your parents to get a divorce? Or the one who points it out? I had to tell my grandchildren's father that I don't owe his other children anything. I lost my youngest daughter Joy a decade ago. She left behind her husband and 2 children, who are now 15 and 16 years old. My daughter was very close to her dad and me, and when she was at her sickest, she begged us to stay in the kids' lives and make sure they always knew she loved them, and that we were her family just as much. She mentioned how worried she was that her husband would encourage them to forget her, and would try to replace her for them with a new woman. She asked that we leave anything we might have left her to her children. We assured her we would never let the relationship end, and that we would make sure they had a good life and would remember her always. 8 months after she died, her husband moved in his now wife into their home. She had a baby with someone else and was also expecting a baby with someone. At that point, he did attempt to make it a package deal where we could not see our grandchildren without treating his now stepchildren as our grandchildren, and that we were to treat all future children of his the same. Otherwise, we would need to be cut out to give our grandchildren the chance to form the new family bonds without interference from us. That they deserved the chance to have another mother and only see the new children as new siblings. Their lawyer told them we would have a case to get grandparents' visitation. We also sought advice on if we were denied access if we could obtain that. We were told, given our close relationship with the children, that it would be easy to get access through the courts. This led to us getting minimal access, but it was all that was needed because our grandchildren were glad to see us and their aunts, uncles, and cousins. In the last few years, my former son-in-law has found himself estranged from his own family, and his wife's family are also no longer in the picture, and he has 6 children, not counting my grandchildren, all in his home with no family or support outside of him and his wife. Now that my grandchildren are teenagers, they seek to spend more time with us, and their lives have benefited from it. We admittedly spoil them more than some would like because of the circumstances, but they are wonderful children. Their father confronted me recently about his other children and how they have no extended family, and are suffering seeing their siblings being spoiled. He also said we had already come between our grandchildren and their siblings because they're not close, and have never asked for their siblings to be part of the extended family they have. He told me I owe it to his children to step in and give them love and some of the same spoiling. I told him I don't owe his children anything, and that I would never forgive him for what he attempted to do before. He told me I was cold-hearted and callous. Part of me wonders if he's right, because the children are innocent, and even though I've never considered them family, they're still young and have nothing to do with my former son-in-law's actions. Am I being the jerk? I understand how you could potentially view yourself as the jerk here, and how you do see the children as innocent, which they are. They have nothing to do with what your son-in-law did. However, knowing the way that he is, my question is, where would it stop? Are you going to be expected to pay for their college and university, their first apartment, contribute to their wedding? How far does this go? I feel like unfortunately the son-in-law is the one that would milk this for all it's worth. So again, I understand why you might feel guilty, but all you have to focus on is loving your grandchildren. As long as they're happy and looked after, then you've done your job. I told my boyfriend's dad that he was dead. My boyfriend left home on his 18th birthday after a big fight with his dad. He tried to reach out after that, but his dad completely ignored him and wanted nothing to do with him. My boyfriend was really depressed about it, but he eventually got over it. I remember one night we all got drunk. We're currently sharing an apartment with friends, and he told us that he was dead to his father, and that stuck with me. Yesterday, he just showed up. My boyfriend's dad, that is. Myself and one of our roommates were the only people home. I answered the door, but I didn't let him in. He said he wanted to talk to his son, and I said, "Oh, your dead son?" He must not have remembered or understood the reference because he went completely pale and asked how and when he died. He looked almost as upset as my boyfriend had been, so I decided to let him stew in it. I told him a fake story. He looked like he was going to throw up, and he asked if he could come in and have some water. I reluctantly let him because he seemed very ill. Once inside, my roommate saw us and asked what was going on. My boyfriend's dad asked if he knew his son, and my roommate was super confused, and it quickly came out that my boyfriend wasn't actually dead. My boyfriend's dad was furious. He said I was a sick person with a hateful heart. I told him he said his son was dead to him, so why would he even care? He said he made a mistake in a moment of anger, but I made a cold-blooded decision. My roommate also said that what I did was kinda messed up. I went to our room and called my boyfriend, who said to make sure his dad had left before he came home, which I did, and he did, reluctantly. I didn't tell my boyfriend about the dead thing, just that he'd showed up and seemed to regret things. My boyfriend is shocked by his dad just showing up, and I don't want to pile more on. My roommate said I was a huge jerk because no one deserves that, but I'm not sure. He did look really sick, but part of me thinks he brought it all upon himself. I don't know. Shortly after my boyfriend got home, I told him about telling his dad he was dead. He wanted to know what his dad's reaction was, and kept asking if he had said anything other than asking for more information before he found out it was a lie. He only really asked questions like when, how, and was it sudden, and things like that. And my boyfriend was pretty disappointed by that. He's pretty depressed this morning. I don't know, maybe I went too far. Was I being the jerk? Yeah, this one I am gonna have to say you're being a jerk for, just because it was completely unnecessary. It was above and beyond, and not something that you should put someone through. I understand feeling the need to get back at someone who's hurt someone you love, but I just don't feel like this was the right way. There's a lot of things that could have gone differently with this story, and it does sound like the ultimate jerk is the boyfriend's dad. Even just showing up unannounced like that is really a jerk move. You're not really giving your son the choice of whether or not he wants to accept you in at that point. You're just forcing it on him. And I get that you're having some regrets about everything that's happened, but that doesn't change any of it. And it doesn't give you the right to make that decision for him. But unfortunately, that's not the question we're looking at. We're looking at what our original poster did. I feel like this was a move just made out of bitterness, and has nothing constructive to offer towards what's going on. If you want to reject him at the door, reject him at the door, but you just chose to take it too far, and that does leave you as a jerk as well.
When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you want some chill music to put on in the background, check out easymode.com. If you like Am I the Jerk, subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.